evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our event tonight. This is a forum where we are going to feature the candidates for this city of Spokane Valley. They have all responded. They've all agreed to be here, and we are so happy to be able to sponsor this for them. I want to give you a little bit of an idea about who we are. Those of you who don't know us, Republicans of Spokane County is an independent organization. We are not the official GOP. We had formed about 10 years ago because we had concerns about the ability to get information to the people in our community, and to be able to sponsor events like this is just what makes us happy. Within RSC, we have a PAC, a Political Action Committee. That is our RSC 1 PAC. That is who is sponsoring you here tonight. We're very grateful for all of those. Now, if you have any questions about us or anything that we do, one of the people in the red or white shirts that say Republicans of Spokane County would really be more than happy to help you. As is our custom, we're going to open with prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to introduce the current president or chair of, are you president or chair? Chair of the Spokane County GOP, to lead us in our invocation, and then she's going to just give you a couple of minutes about what's going on in GOP. There's a mic on the table, right there. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hang on.
John turned it off, sorry. I'll blame him.
Okay.
Yep.
It's working. Please pray with me. Father God, we thank you for the freedoms that we have in this country. We thank you for the rights that we've been granted by you. We look to our elected officials to secure and maintain those rights, Lord. And we know with those rights we come responsibilities to educate ourselves and make an informed decision with our vote. Lord, we pray a hedge of protection around those who step into the political arena with their actions and their words. Now more than ever, it's a dangerous place. Let us be responsible in our rhetoric, Lord, and let us honor you in everything we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So we just came off a very successful Lincoln Day dinner fundraiser for the GOP. That was early June, and we had Tommy Laren as our speaker, and we raised a good deal of money to help candidates this year, and also put out positive messaging about the Republican Party. As I mentioned in my prayer, the rhetoric has heated up from the left, and I think it's a time for us to talk about what we believe in as Republicans. So be looking for that messaging as we solidify our plans later on. We have events coming up if you'd like to help us. We've got the South Perry Street Fair next month. We've got Pig Out in the Park and the County Fair coming in late summer, August and September timeframe. So it's a great time to be a Republican. See me if you'd like to get involved, or go to SpokaneGOP.com.
Thank you.
Oh, and the pledge.
Yes, that would be Mr. Grisco. I'd like to introduce a member of our organization, Mr. John Grisco, who will lead us in the pledge. If you could all stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Just a couple of really quick announcements of things that are coming up here that you might be interested in. This weekend at the Greyhound Park, the Spirit of America rally will be taking place at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There are postcards on the front desk if you'd like to check in there to get information on that. We also have coming up, I believe, John, on the 13th, Northwest Grassroots, the 12th or the 13th?
Second Wednesday.
The second Wednesday. Check with John later if you'd like to look. Northwest Grassroots will be hosting these same candidates if you didn't get all your questions answered tonight. And then, most importantly to us, please pick up a flyer on the cruise Every year we sponsor a cruise with a theme. This year we'll be sponsoring the cruise to honor our police officers and law enforcement. Should be a great cruise. We have some honorable mentions and things we'll be doing there, as well as a no-host bar, dinner, all for $55. Can't beat it. So please pick up that information. Now, in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to have Leonard hold this so I'm not speaking into two mics. For council position number 1 this evening, I'd like to introduce Mr. Chris Jackson. Come on in, Chris, and if you will all sit together for your position. Okay? Mr. Al Merkel. And
Over here, please.
And then holding the position currently, Mayor, I believe, Rod Higgins. Council position number 2, Brandi Peetz and Caleb Collier, currently in that position. Caleb, if you could come on in. Council position number 4, we have Ben Wick, currently in that position. Ed Pace. Council position number 5, currently in the position, Pamela Haley, Rocky Samson, Ingemar Woods, here in the front, and Angie Beem, who is out of town right now and won't be able to attend. If those of you for Council 5 position would be right here in the front, since yours is the largest. Council position number 7, Linda Thompson. And currently in that position, Mike Munch. I did not say that, but Pam is currently holding the position in position number 5. Our questioner tonight is very qualified in this field. She works for the Spokesman Review and has since 2004. She is an investigative reporter. We have not seen these questions tonight. We're stepping outside tonight of the realm that we normally take. We are very Republican, if you haven't noticed. That's who we are. For this tonight, in a nonpartisan race with challengers across the board, we felt that Pia would be a perfect person to join us, and she graciously agreed to help us this evening because she attends all the council meetings. I know that for a fact she just sat in on a full day of budget hearings, and has a full bevy of questions to ask these candidates. They will get 2 minutes to introduce themselves to you. After that, they will be timed. Candidates will be strictly timed with 13 of you. We've got to keep it that way because if we don't, we'll be here till midnight and we'll all go to sleep on us. So we want you to be able to ask questions as well. You should have picked up a 3x5 card out front. Hand it to one of the people with the white or red shirts on. That question will be reviewed and handed to Pia, and she will randomly give that to the candidates. They have 1 minute to answer each one. Not every candidate will get every question. We wanted to keep it snappy and keep it moving for you, so it will be a lot more random than what you're used to. We're looking forward to presenting this to you, and I now turn this over to Pia Hallenberg.
Thank you. Now, is this up high enough? I think it is. So my name is Pia Hallenberg. I'm with the Spokesman Review. I've been a reporter in Spokane for 20 years. This is not my first rodeo, as they say. I've done these debates on radio. I've done them on TV. I've done them in front of high school groups and in many other settings. I have, however, never had 13 candidates at the same time. This is a large group of people, so please bear with us as we kind of work through things. There will be some hang time for the candidates when someone else is answering a question. You know, just please be patient. Don't like yell at people and shake your head or whatever. Just try to let them answer the question, and we'll try and move you through so everybody gets a chance to talk. I have 2 purposes here tonight.
Should have known.
One is to make sure, as best as I can, that each candidate gets the same amount of time to talk. My other purpose is to make sure that we keep the debate here in the Valley. Tonight, I am not worried about the president. I don't know which microphone is making that noise. I am not, where is she? I am not worried about the president. I am not worried about what happened in Russia last night. I am not worried about terrorist attacks. Maybe I should be, but I really want to keep the debate here in Spokane Valley, because the people up here who are serving right now, those are the issues that you deal with. The people who are running for office, these are the questions you're going to get. There are no trick questions, by the way. Just want to make that completely clear. All the information I used to come up with my questions is from the city website. It's from the budget workshop that I sat through. It's from stories that have been reported. I have no secret sources that slip me last-minute details about whatever. There's none of that. We're just trying to move through it and work you through some issues that hopefully mean something to you guys too, because that's why you're here. I will ask of you, please, that you are respectful. As angry as you may get or as upset as you may get because you hear something you don't agree with, just please be respectful of the people who are up here. They all work full-time jobs. Some of them serve on the council already. Some of them are running for office and making a big investment in our community. So just please be respectful when we start to go through the answers and the questions. You all have cards you can write a question on. You can give them to one of the nice people in the red t-shirts and they will magically make it up here, and I will pass them out as best I can. Good evening, candidates. How are you? You're all lined up there like it's not the most comfortable thing, but let's see if we can make it work. You will each get 2 minutes to introduce yourself. One thing that I would like for you to address, because it's been brought up on social media especially, is whether or not you belong to a political party, and whether or not you belong to some sort of action committee, grassroots committee, foundation, whatever you want to call it, with a political purpose. I'm asking this question because it's brought up by some people and not by other people, and it just seems fair that everybody has a chance to say whether or not they belong to a party. Your positions are, of course, nonpartisan. I understand that, but please keep that in mind. I went through your PDC filings over the weekend and this morning, and there are 2 of you who are not in compliance completely right now. When we get to you, I'll just give you a chance to explain exactly what happened. It's not a big deal at this point, but I just want to give you a chance to say, you know, this is what we're doing, and then we'll take it from there. Pam, I think you should go first. I thought about this a lot because you have the most challengers. I don't know how that happened, but you do. And so I think you should go first. You're on the city council right now. You have 2 minutes to introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for office again, please.
Okay, so I'm Pia Hallenberg. I was appointed to the council last July.
Can you use a microphone?
Of course I can.
Oh, you have it.
Here, I have it here.
Okay. Yeah, we need to do that.
Second, hold the button.
Sorry about that.
Some other microphones, so we don't have to hand them all across. Or should I just use-
In a minute. Let's just see how it goes. Does it work? No?
Hello? Yes.
Yes,
Look
it
at that
works.
go.
There,
Okay.
there you
I
go.
am Pam Haley. I was appointed to the City Council last July in a vacant position, which is why I'm running. The reason that I'll give you a little bit of background. I own a couple of daycare centers downtown Spokane. I was in the Valley. Ended up having a Children's Home Society contacting me, asking me if I would go into partnership with them, and the location had to be downtown, so I know a lot of people have questioned that. I serve a really needy population, lots of homeless kids, lots of homeless kids, lots of parents who are drug and alcohol in treatment. I have an MBA and an MSCD because I like student loans in school. I've always wanted to serve the community in more ways than I have, but I've been building businesses and I have been really, really busy. So I just really haven't felt like I had the amount of time commitment that I needed to do it. I am at the point right now where I do have the time commitment. I have loved the last year. I have loved talking to the citizens and hearing the issues and listening to all your comments and concerns and questions, and I just hope to continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Robert Samson.
Well, my name is Rocky Samson. I own 2 businesses here in town, one being Checker Cab of Spokane. My family is an heir of Checker Cab back in New York from 1901. I also own Rocky's Flea Market, which we do a lot of good works for the veterans. Homeless veterans is a big issue of mine. I would like to, the reason I'm running for city council is I'd like to help out as many people as I possibly can, and we're already doing that, or I am already doing that with the veterans, the homeless veterans. We bring them in, we feed them, we get them resources that they may need through DSHS. We work very hard. I own two, like I say, I own two companies. I do have a lot of time. I'm affiliated with no other political organization. Basically doing this all on my own with just the company's funding myself. And I hope to be able to serve all of you in a capacity that is good for all of us and to grow our community. That's what I want to do.
Haley forgot.
Again?
I do. I like to talk. What can I say? I forgot to mention I am affiliated with the Republican Party.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ingemar Woods. I thank you for inviting me here. My life started out as a migrant farm laborer's child, and we traveled to Washington and lived in several states. And my life spiraled into becoming an alcoholic and a drug addict, and locked up a few times. And about 15 years ago, I became a Christian, and were drug programs and alcohol programs, and being locked up could not change me. Jesus Christ did. And so I eventually went to seminary, Liberty Baptist Theological Seminary, and I figured out I really wasn't geared towards or called to be a preacher, so I went into religious education and volunteered for many years, and was given a scholarship to go on for an education specialist degree. They needed a compliance officer and a chief learning officer for the university, the Christian school. And then I went on and got a doctor of business administration. I currently work for a small university in Great Falls, Montana. And I dedicate my life to helping the disadvantaged, but that's not to say that's the only people I care about. I care about everybody. And the reason I'm running for office is I just feel that there's more people from my section of the population that needs to step up and become leaders, and also try to change the people that they can, help enable them to get off drugs and do not commit crimes and become pro-social. So I'm affiliated with no parties, because I have some very conservative views and I have some liberal views. But I hope to earn the trust of the Spokane Valley, and even if I lose this election, it's not going to stop me from participating in making this a better community. Thank you all.
Thank you. Could you hand the microphone to Mike Munch, please? Because you're currently on the city council, so I want you to go first.
Okay. Well, I'm Mike Munch. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a longtime resident of the area. My story is similar to Pam. I have been a business owner for about 12 years now, I believe it is. And a lot of that was out of town work. So even though the family was here and I was here off and on, I wasn't here as often as I wanted to be. So last year I kind of slowed down the business and took a step back from that. And right about the same time, a spot opened up on the city council, Spokane Valley City Council. So I applied for that. And I got appointed in August for that position. And I've really enjoyed what I've been able to help everybody that that's reached out to me. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, and that's what I believe, that we should all be servant leaders, and you should be called to this position, to serve other people. So that's what my main focus is. I'm basically a lifelong Republican, and that's the only affiliation really that I have right now. And I used to be plugged in more, but I moved 2 years ago from Suncrest into Spokane again, so I haven't plugged back in because we have a PCO in our area right now. Other than that, I love to keep on doing what I've been able to do so far, and really enjoyed it, and happy to answer any questions anybody has whenever.
I have one extra question for you, please, because like I said, I looked through the PDC stuff, and you haven't filed any expenses or any fundraising yet. Have you not done any fundraising?
Yeah, I haven't started yet, so
okay.
It's
right.
Next Monday I have a kickoff, and that's when I'll be going. So
that's what I figured. Just wanted to give you a chance to explain that. Linda Thompson, please.
Thank you. I'm Linda Thompson, and I am running in position 7. Since I was in the 3rd grade and was elected patrol leader of my Girl Scout troop, I have wanted to be in leadership. And I have loved being a leader across my high school career and college career, and I am privileged to run a nonprofit and have been there for 25 years, doing good things to help our kids make positive choices to be healthy and strong in their decisions. And I just have always wanted to serve, and having raised my kids in this community, my husband and I, he's a retired carpenter, he's a fabulous man. Our kids were Titans. Even though I was a bear, I was able to sing the Titan fight song. And I just really support our schools. I support community engagement. I work with law enforcement. I work with social service agencies. I work with citizens. We've done a lot of great work in preventing crime and reducing the impact of drugs and alcohol through different grants that have come to the community. One of the things I really enjoy is legislative work, and I have worked with our legislators both at the congressional level and the state level, and I have to say I have great respect for our current city council members. I think it's very difficult to run for public office, to be appointed to an office, and to work trying to make the best for your city, listening to all kinds of issues that community has, and being able to be fair. Some of the decisions are tough, so I have a great deal of respect for our elected officials, and I hope to be one myself. Thank you.
I have a quick follow-up question. Were you on the council once before?
No, I wasn't. I lost the coin toss for an appointment, and then I did run against Mayor Higgins, but he won, and I just wanted to try again.
Thank you. And could you pass the microphone back to Ed Pace, please?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ed Pace, currently serving near the end of my first term on the Spokane Valley City Council. I also serve as pastor of First Lutheran Church in Spirit Lake, Idaho. I'm a husband of over 44 years, father of 4, grandfather of 6, Eagle Scout, Vietnam veteran, former Hewlett-Packard production supervisor, and now second career Lutheran pastor. As far as political affiliation, I am a dues-paying member of the Republican Liberty Caucus, the Libertarian Party, and the Constitution Party. However, no party gets to tell me how to believe or how to vote. For example, in this last election, I voted for almost all Republican, including who we're not supposed to talk about, but I did, and with the exception, I voted for 2 Democrats and 1 Libertarian. That was the only exception. So it's a really exciting time to serve you on the City Council now. I'm proud to say I was happy to help keep our spending flat, not raise taxes, and significantly reduce regulations to make life easier on businesses. So I'm running for a second and final term. I believe in term limits because after the first term, which was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, love getting out and meeting people. I talk with a lot of businesses and a lot of residents, and I'm really just learning. So I'm hoping for to serve you for one more 4-year term, and that'll be it. Thank you.
And I have a follow-up for you too, because you're very active on social media, which is something that I appreciate because you're very transparent. And I just want to make sure that I read a post from you yesterday. You said you are a member of the Republican Liberty Caucus, the Libertarian Party, and the Constitution Party.
Right. That's what I just said. Yes.
Good. Great. Just checking that out. Ben Wick, please.
All right. Ben Wick, running for Spokane Valley City Council position number 4, challenging Mr. Pace here today. I'm born and raised Spokane Valley, actually 4th generation of my family here in the Valley. So we were here before the state was formed. So my great-grandfather actually had a dairy farm where Sprague 90 is now that he lost during the Depression. So I have long heritage here. Actually, proud to be raising 3 daughters. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 9-month-old. And so trying to keep the Valley tradition going and alive. Very proud and want to give back to the community as well. I mean, my grandfather actually started Spokane Recycling, as well as partnered in a bank and did some real estate. So there's actually a Wick Street in the Valley. So trying to give back to the community some more. I'm a proud member of the Spokane Valley Kiwanis Club, where we try and serve the children of the community and try to do that. Graduated from East Valley High School in the Valley, and then got a computer science degree from Eastern Washington University. Went to work in manufacturing, so I actually focus in their lean manufacturing program, which is where we try and analyze manufacturing systems to drive out waste and bring more efficiencies to the business. So that's kind of my passion as well through the technology side. Also a small business owner, recently purchased the Splash and the Current news magazines about a year ago. Actually about a year and a half ago now as time flies, sorry. But while I also was on a city council up to about 2 years ago, so I served one term on the city council and really found my passion and strong suit into the transportation and infrastructure side. I think that's one of the core values of our city council and things that they need to prioritize. With that, I served on the Regional Transportation Council and actually chaired that group, and as well as since getting off of City Council, they actually kept me on, and so now I'm on their Citizens Advisory Group and chair that for the Regional Transportation Council. And one of the things that kind of brings me more concern to call back to City Council is, I guess I'll talk about that later. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you pass it to Caleb Collier, please? You can stand up if that's easier for you. You know, it's a little crowded up there.
Hi, I'm Caleb Collier, and I'm proud to serve as your council member for position 2 for Spokane Valley. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a true public servant. I really believe in this. It's why I got into this. I want to be your voice, and along those lines, I've always made sure that I'm very approachable. I've always made it a hallmark of my career to where if you email me, if you call me, if you text me, I'm going to respond to you. And we may not agree on everything, but I'm going to respond, and we can sit down, we can talk. I'll call you. I'll give you my phone number. I don't mind about that. My background, I went to Meade High School, joined the Marine Corps directly after doing that, served 4 years, was honorably discharged. I received a Good Conduct Medal. Got out actually 4 months after September 11th. It was very interesting times, but I did not go overseas for that. Once I came back from the Marine Corps, I ended up going to school and becoming a EMT advanced, and I served this community for, 6.5 years as an EMT, working the local ambulance company. So I have a long history of serving the community and really just trying to better my environment. I'm the proud father of 5 kids, 5 great kids, ranging from 13 all the way, well, my son just had, it's his birthday actually today. And then my youngest is going to turn a year in July. Beautiful wife's in the audience there. And I reached a point in my life where I was tired of sort of armchair quarterbacking. I had a lot of knowledge. I had my degree in history. And I realized that I wanted to get involved and do something. And so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brandi Peetz. I'm running for position 2 against Caleb. My husband and I both have been raised here. I've been here for over 25 years. I was raised in the Spokane Valley. I went to schools there, did lots of activities. I'm also a Central Valley Bear. I went to Spokane Community College where I earned an academic scholarship. I was also vice president elected for my student government. I got to go over to Olympia and talk to lots of our legislators. So that's where I first got my taste of politics and decided it was something I wanted to get involved with. Through there, I went to Gonzaga University and I received a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and sociology and got involved in my community. I've been on several boards. I actually currently sit on the Spokane Citizens Advisory Board through the Sheriff's Office, where I've learned a lot and educated myself on Valley issues as well as county issues. I just want to give back to the community, and one of my platforms is actually being the voice of the Valley because I feel as though they're not being represented. I want to be there for everybody and hear what they have to say. There's a lot of issues that we face as a Valley, and I want to have those tough conversations and work together with my co-workers as well as people who disagree. So for me, this is just a good opportunity for me to get myself back involved in the community, and I feel like I would be a great representative for the Valley just because of my unique background. I am not involved in a political party. I am very nonpartisan. I truly believe that we should represent our people and not a party. Thank you.
Thank you.
I forgot to mention that I'm a member of the Constitution Party and a proud Precinct Committee Officer for the Republican Party.
Thank you. Mayor Higgins, your turn.
Good evening. Thank you all for taking time from your evening to come and listen to 13 politicians and would-be politicians. I am a member of the Republican Party. I'm a precinct committee officer. I'm a graduate of the University of Idaho with a degree in finance. I've spent most of my working years in the mining industry with a sidebar into personal finance type issues, stockbroker, trust officer, that sort of thing. This is my 5th year on City Council. During that time, we have completed the Sullivan Bridge, the Shoreline Master Plan, a comprehensive plan revision, which is very innovative and very business friendly, by the way. We are building a city hall, which is very near completion, which will, over its 30-year bond service time, will save us at least $7 million. And high on our priority list right now is crossing the railroad tracks next to Trent Avenue. And we're well on our way to getting those jobs done. I would appreciate your support in the coming election. Thank you.
I just have a follow-up question for you too about the PDC stuff. You have not started fundraising yet?
Yes, I have.
You have, okay. They didn't get your reports then?
My reports are done. The last one is in abeyance because my daughter, who is in Germany, the PDC will not accept an APO address, and so we're trying to get that resolved.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just want to get you a chance to explain that. Thank you.
Hi, folks. Thanks again for coming out, and thanks, of course, to the Republicans of Spokane County for putting this together, and Beva, of course, and thank you, Pia, for taking your time to put together what I'm sure are going to be great questions. And really, I want to thank all of you for taking your time to come out here tonight, because it's really your choices that matter, not so much ours. Ultimately, the fate of the Valley rests in your hands. And the way I see it, I kind of see two different visions of what that valley might look like. You know, we may continue the status quo where we have political leaders who make very dogmatic political choices that seem to really reflect the views of a small political elite that may not even live in the valley. We have road maintenance that seems to be declining rather than improving, services that seem to be declining. We have growth that seems to be unchecked, population growth in all sectors. We have apartments coming up on all sectors, and we have public safety that I think is, difficult. I'd like to represent a different vision. I'd like to represent a valley where political leaders make common sense decisions that work for us, that work for our valley, that work for you, the people, rather than, any dogmatic choice or any allegiance to any political party, which I don't have. I am a member of the Republican Women's Luncheon, Ponderosa Republican Women's Luncheon, an associate member, but I don't have any allegiance to any party. I'd like to represent growth that's checked by the market, and I think that there's market forces that can do that for us. I'd like to see economic development that's led by leaders who have economic development experience. I have about 10 years of economic development experience working for USAID, and I'd like to bring that here to our valley. So realistically, the choices are yours, and I hope you make the right ones. Thank you.
Last but not least.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Chris Jackson, and I'm running for City Council Position 1. Yep, they're good. And the first two things to note about me is that I'm very big into child education, and I am an educator. I have taught swimming lessons in the Valley for more than 10 years, and some of your kids may have taken lessons from the family pool. In addition, I put a lot of extensive work into the Vanessa Bien Crisis Nursery. As for education, I recently finished my PhD in New Zealand. I'm in the final stages of defense, and I firmly believe that moving forward, we should try to infuse education into as many facets of our lives as possible. A little bit more about myself. I'm a third-generation Spokane Valley kid. After each new degree I get, I always end up coming back here because this is home for me. This is my lifeblood. And there were some decisions that were made that sort of act as the quote-unquote inciting incident for me or my decision to run. The three things I want to talk about. First is transparency. The inciting incident, if you will, was the firing of Mike Jackson. And when I went back and read the minutes, it was a bit confusing for me because all of the comments from most of the city council members and a lot of members of the public were like, this is a stand-up gentleman, he's doing a fantastic job. And all of a sudden, 4 council members had sort of already kind of made the decision, and they weren't really listening to the people who were at the meeting. And so for me, that was the biggest thing. And that also came with a price tag of more than $400,000. So reading the Spokesman review, I was like, okay, yeah, that might be something worth looking into and getting involved for. The second thing for me is accountability. And by accountability, I mean, as a city council person, I would make a lot of decisions that you agree with, and I would make a lot of decisions that you probably don't agree with. And during those times, I want everybody to feel comfortable approaching me and airing their grievances. So I can also say, hey, this is why I made the decision, this is why I thought it was a good idea. And I think that's the best way to build relationships moving forward. And the final thing I want to talk about is the export of our biggest export, which is our youth. We need to look for more high-tech industry rather than just retail and tourism. And those are sort of the reasons that I really want to be a part of this council moving forward to change that direction. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, can I follow up?
Yes.
I am currently not a member of any political party, but I was a member of the Democratic Precinct Committee Officer position about 10 years ago.
Okay. All right. Now, Ben, you raised your hand. Was there?
I did. I forgot one quick thing. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
I am an elected Republican Party PCO and a member of the Republicans of Spokane County.
Okay. All right. So I think we should start with one of these amazing questions that I've come up with, and I would like to see if we let's see how long time. That is not fair. I did not get 2 minutes. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. I have no more time. No, I would like to see if so this is like a larger policy issue, and I would like to see if it's possible to run you all through an answer. Can we try that to begin with and see how long time that takes? Okay. So at the budget meeting on Tuesday, city staff presented a budget. They kept the growth below 2%, which is amazing, absolutely incredible. The city manager, however, said that when it comes to your road fund, beyond 2018, it looks grim. Those were his words. In 2016, the Public Works Department, and there's been staff changes and everything there, estimated that there is a $6.1 million deficit in the road maintenance in Spokane Valley. Now, that number, as Mark Calhoun explained to me, of course, varies depending on how nice you want your roads. Because if you're okay with not so nice roads for a while, then the number would, of course, go down. Long story short, no matter what angle you're coming at this from, some sort of funding of the road fund needs to happen. And I would like to know where you propose the money would come from. The fund is down because it was funded by phone tax, and the phone tax revenue is not coming in the way that it used to. So the fund is not down because of mismanagement or anything like that. The source of the fund is simply not around anymore. So let's start with you, Pam, because you're conveniently right there. What would you suggest?
So I think what we're looking at right now is how much do we really need to maintain our roads? There's been, coming out of the Public Works Department, previously there were some varying figures. The bridge was going to cost $32 million and then it was going to cost $15. So I think some of the question is how much money do we need? And until we know how much money we need, we don't know where to go looking for it. I am not a pro-tax person. I'm also not a bad road person. The only way I would approve a tax would be if you people voted for it. But I do think that at some point we're going to have to come up with something that actually means that we keep our roads good and we don't end up in the situation like the city of Spokane has, where they're spending millions of dollars completely tearing up roads and putting them back down, when if we can maintain them by grinding down and then overlaying, we're going to save a lot of money in the long run, and we're going to have the roads that we have now, which are really pretty good.
Good.
Thank you.
Pass it back to Mr. Jackson, please. Thank you.
Oh, hello. Hello again. I do share the same belief that we need to look to more long-term solutions, and so some of the ideas I was talking about consisted of finding consistent sources of revenue. And there's a few ways we can do this. One that's been discussed most recently is potentially lifting the moratorium on marijuana business licenses. I personally don't smoke, but I also don't smoke cigarettes. And I know we collect money from one of them and not the other. So if we do want to look to more permanent solutions, I think that's a place we can start in terms of taxing the businesses and taxing the user with a sales tax. And further, I would also consider looking into potentially cutting healthcare benefits, because we are one of 2 cities in Spokane Valley that get healthcare benefits and we don't work full-time jobs. So it seems like there might be some funding there.
All right, thank you. Mr. Merkel, please.
Hi, thanks. I think there's a couple of things that we need to look at. First, we need to look at procurement policies and procedures. I think there's money saved in more efficient, better procurement policies and procedures. I'm a contracts officer with the federal government, and I think I can do a lot there. I'd also like to say that I agree with Pam when it comes to taxes. I really think that people should vote for taxes rather than elected officials. If new taxes are needed, I agree that we should go out to the people to look to that, and we should educate the people on what we think is the best solution. If a new tax was needed, I think it would have to be a combination of license tax on tabs for cars, perhaps a small utility tax, but I would steer away from that as much as possible, just because of the fact that currently our utilities have about a 20% delinquency rate, which I think is very high, and a cable tax. I just want to say that I'm a little concerned about the marijuana tax issue, because as far as I understand, the state collects all taxes when it comes to marijuana and passes those to the cities in a small manner. Anyway.
All right, can you pass the microphone forward, please, to Rocky? Thank you.
Okay, so I agree with Pam. We need to raise the taxes have to come from someplace. I know a lot of people don't want to pay taxes. I'm a business owner. I don't want to pay taxes, okay? But we're going to need taxes to restore these roads. Restoration. This chemical that we're putting down is horrible for these roads. That's why you see the little pebbles. Concrete is made out of 60-40. That means 60% rock, 40% concrete. So if we have restoration and not so much of the chemical, maybe we can look towards a method, whether it be salt or a biodegradable chemical or something that will work better with our concretes and our roads, then that may be a solution that we can do. So
you don't think we need to raise more money?
Yes, I do think we need to raise more money, and that money should come from business licensing.
Okay.
A lot of the things that the other candidates are talking about are state regulated.
Okay, thank you. Would you give it to the mayor, please? Thank you.
Very interesting problem, preserving our roads. As Pam pointed out, the Public Works Department gave us numbers as high as $8 million. That turned out to be not necessarily so. If we had all the money in the world and you went to Spokane, the city of, they have a penchant down there for being able to block off and repair major arterials. Oh, and by the way, all of the things that would circumvent and allow you to get around those construction sites. We don't want that to happen here, so there's probably a maximum that we have to put into our roads each year. And right now, we're still struggling to find that because of the soft numbers, the undependable numbers we were getting before. All of the ideas for taxation here, minus the pot, are workable.
Okay, thank you. Woods, you have one, right?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how to do the microphone thing. We'll just figure it out. Thank you, sir. Go ahead. You have to push the button. The bottom.
Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Well, can you hear me?
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
Everybody has some pretty good ideals, and a lot of people reject the utilizing the cannabis type funding, but I like that. And I think the utility tax may have to come into play. And, that's a tough thing because, like I believe it was Dr. Jackson said, we have a high delinquency. But if we don't only put it on the homeowners back and by raising the property tax, I think it's unfair. But I think that a combination between maybe a very small property tax increase and a utility tax increase will do it if we can't utilize some of the cannabis cells. I'm not too familiar with that enough to say that.
I have
but
an
I think
excellent
it's a
question about that. We can do that next, so
Okay.
it explains a few things.
So I guess in a short answer, I would say a very small property tax increase and a small utility tax increase.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay. I think we have to look at all aspects of this, looking at is there a way to conserve what we have, look at any kind of tax increase I think has to come with a way to help our senior citizens on fixed income, just like with our property taxes, to be able to go in and have a reduction for those who could not afford it. I think there has to be a way to take care of our people while we do the things that will help our infrastructure stay in place. I think that we've got to look at everything, and as we're looking at what we really need, also at the same time be looking at other possibilities, working with our state legislators, looking at transportation packages, working with the Regional Transportation Commission, just looking at anything we can. And I know this council has done a lot of good research, and I think the staff of the city has done good research, but I think coming together and just really pounding out something that will work out really well for our whole community.
All right. And let's do you, Mr. Munch, please. Since we did the whole first row here, I'm timing you all. Did it turn off? Did you get it?
Am I on?
Yep.
Okay. As everybody else has said, we really need good numbers before we know what we need to do. Nobody wants to end up in the mess that the city of Spokane is, but we don't just want to throw money at the problem either, or make a problem when there's not really one there. So first and foremost, we need to know how much it's going to cost to maintain, and they're actually working on a new way to rate the roads and decide which needs to be done first, that I think is going to be very beneficial, and that alone should save some money for us. And then as long as we don't dip too much further on the telephone utility tax, we can probably come pretty close to net neutral on that, is what we're hoping. If that doesn't happen, then we are going to have to raise revenue, and my feeling would be to transfer that telephone tax onto a different utility just straight across the board so that we were getting the money that we needed. But I really don't want to do a bunch of utilities because that's a selling point for us.
Okay, thank you. Brandi, please.
I do know that the utility tax that has been brought up, they can put on the agenda, and they can put it up to 6% without the people's vote. That's definitely not something I'm for. After speaking with Modern Electric, which is in my area, 3,000 of their 10,000 customers are on delinquent notices right now. And I know that when this council was formed, that they had spoken about not raising the utility tax ever. So for me, I don't feel like that's a viable option. There's also two other ways that we can get this money. I mean, it has to come from somewhere. We definitely have to fix it before it becomes more of a problem than it already is. I know in the last couple of years, the PCI index was at 75 and it's now at 71. They're obviously deteriorating, and we need to do something about it. So for me, I believe that once we hear from the people, and I know it takes money to have a vote, but maybe getting the public's input first and starting there.
Okay, quick follow-up. You said you had two ideas as to where the money could come from?
There's another tax that they were talking about, and then there's also the license tabs.
Okay, so license tabs? And,
yes.
And, okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Collier, please.
Pia, help me out. Yeah.
Yep, you're on.
You said if you're okay with not so good roads, is that correct?
That's what I said, yes.
No, I would suggest you move to Spokane then.
I live in Spokane. What I said was, you know, how much you're going to spend on your roads depend on how nice you want your roads to be. If you're okay with potholes, I mean, I live downtown. It's not a secret. And I'm surrounded by heavy machinery and trenches and block roads for the third year in a row. But anyways, I said, if you want not so good roads, don't spend any money on them. But I have a feeling that good roads is a priority out here. So why don't you go ahead?
Here in Spokane Valley, the roads are essential to us. And the way I look at budgets is exactly how I budget my house. I divide it into wants and needs. And streets are an absolute need for Spokane Valley. And so along those lines, sometimes you have to make hard decisions. And yes, sometimes those needs have to go to the wayside, at least for a small time period. Brandi brought up the PCI. That's a very good point. Currently, we run on a 71%, and it's universal. It's across all of our streets. Now, is that necessarily the best idea for every road? Perhaps we should relook at that. Some of our minor streets, maybe they don't need to be replaced at that 71% degradation rate. So that's one issue. For myself, I'm standing on no new taxes, and so I'm going to fight this, and I'm going to find other ways that we can protect our streets without passing the cost to the taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wick?
Sure. I think this is on.
Yep.
So earlier this month, actually, we rolled over, or the city rolled over, $3 million, or just a little bit north of that, from the 2015 budget, which is last year I was on there. So budgets are one thing, but actual expenditures are another. And so we should take that and prioritize that back into our street maintenance program. So that's one source of revenue already. That would be a good large chunk. I mean, the other side is focusing on growing the economy. If we grow the economy, then we have more taxpayers and then less taxes all the way around. We tried to focus on that when I was on the city council. And this year, we actually, in the 2018 budget process, they're projected to have revenues outpacing expenses to the tune of $2.2 to $2.4 million more in revenue than expenses. I think we should prioritize that into our street preservation program as well. When I was on there, we didn't have a large revenue over expenses, but we still found 6% of the city budget or recurring expenses to dedicate towards street maintenance. And so you got to make incremental progress and make that change and make that a priority, and that's what we should do.
Thank you. Mr. Pace, please.
Ben made some good points. That $3 million surplus is going to be invested back into infrastructure investments, which in turn will help with economic development, which will help us grow out of this. I don't believe the $6 million, and to that end, our new staff, our new administration is first evaluating the method that we use for measuring the pavement quality and planning. Once that's done, then we can look at the true costs. And again, it's been $10 million one time, it was $6 million, it was $8 million. I don't believe it. It should be less. Number three, like Caleb, I'm committed to no new taxes. I expect my city government to work just like my house does. If spending goes up in one area, we need to make cuts in another. That's just the way it goes. We have to make hard choices.
Thank you. So I have a question here from the audience. They actually, whoever wrote this question stole one of my questions, so I figure, you know, we may as well go here. I would actually like to ask this question first and foremost of those of you who are not on the city council right now, because the current city council made this decision. The question goes, let's see here, so you guaranteed $50,000 a year over 5 years for this recent cooking event that was here at Center Place. That was Crave Northwest, that was here this, can you hear me okay? It doesn't sound right, okay. That was Crave Northwest, that was here this weekend. I don't know if anybody had a chance to go. I got to go on Friday, it was absolutely amazing. But the person wants to know, you've dedicated $50,000 a year for 5 years to this cooking event that was here this weekend. Why do you consider this a better investment over building more participation in other local events? Rocky? See, there's 3 microphones up there, so you're just going to have to I can't go up there and give you one. So
we'll get it.
There we go. Thank you.
Well, my calves were out there. We didn't do very well out there. I don't agree with the money that they spent on the events.
Okay. Is there anything you could think of you could do as a city council member to build better participation in local events, or would that not be your job?
It is kind of our job, you know, to create more events for the citizens. That way we could be more aware of how they're feeling and the way they're thinking. And we all want to be proactive. I think everybody here that's either running or that is on the council wants to hear from the people. But there are, like Valley Fest. That's one good thing that I think we should stick to what we know.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Woods, please.
I have to agree with Rocky here. I don't know if that was really a good spend. You know, that would be $200,000 or something. But I like the Valley Fest and the things that we have in place, and that's.
What do you think you could do as a council member if you wanted to support Valley Fest or build attendance? It's just an example. We're not. I mean, it could be another event. It could be the bicycle event or something. What do you think a city council member could do to help attendance?
To support something like that?
Financially?
Right. I think that we could publicize it for that and get it out there, get it out to the news.
All right. Thank you. Very brief.
Everybody's talking about supporting. Checker Cab did support them. Rocky Samson did support them. We put our cabs out there. There was a Checker Cab out there the whole time that the event was going on. So we did actually support them.
Yeah, okay.
And as a council member, I will support every new business, every entrepreneur.
So we're talking about city financial support to the event. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Linda.
So I do know that the investment was made for economic development. And I do understand that it's got to be a critical part of our budget and the things that we do in our community, because we've got to grow businesses, we've got to grow our Spokane Valley as a place where businesses want to come and people want to come. And that's what's so wonderful about Valley Fest and the activities that go with that is it's family friendly, people come. I know that a lot of people come and use hotel rooms, and I think it's a concerted effort. The thing for me is I want to look at what the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce is doing with their Big Five initiative, and looking at the sports complex, which is going to bring more people in playing sports and activities and tournaments, the hub, those kinds of things that will bring healthy events that all community members could come, because you had to be 21 and over to attend this event, except for the Sunday brunch for Father's Day. So I'd like to support community events for all.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, please.
I want to echo the confusing elements of making decisions like this, because I do understand that, echoing back to my point about children wanting stuff to do in Spokane Valley, or young professionals, we do need to look to supporting these events where we can, but at the same time, $50,000 a year is something we will file under a want rather than a need. And so moving forward, I think the council's job should be more ancillary in support. We have a lot of contacts, we have a lot of people we can get them in touch with, and so that would hopefully include either news outlets or people who are willing to donate or people who are willing to give time to make these events what they are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Mr. Merkel?
Yeah, so this is an economic development question. It's really right up my wheelhouse. I really like the idea behind Crave, because the idea is spending on culture. And when we look at cities that are really doing well, that are similar to Spokane, Meridian, a suburb of Boise, or Eugene, Oregon, or Cedar Rapids, they're really spending on culture, and that's bringing in business. And I think that's great. The problem is this is really kind of a phase 2 step. In phase 1, we need to have the businesses in the valley before we have kind of an event for businesses, because the problem is when you looked at Crave, most of the businesses, most of the chefs that attended were City of Spokane chefs, Liberty Lake chefs, Coeur d'Alene chefs, and it's great, but ultimately, what are we fostering? So we need to use our funds to foster our business first before we go to that stage 2. And to that point, I would say I would redirect those funds towards business development efforts, towards creating BIDs, business improvement districts, right here in the valley that can foster our local businesses before we move to phase 2.
Okay, thank you. Brandi, please.
I too agree with Albert. I mean, I think it was a great idea and had some honest intention behind it, but it's my understanding that most of that money did not come back into the valley. So for them to put that amount of money on an event that's not even benefiting our citizens, I think maybe they could have done a little more thought to that process.
If I can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yes.
There? I think it's perhaps a bit too early to make that call, because the event was just over Sunday night. So the true financial impact of the cab service or the hotel rooms is not quite clear yet. So it's a bit early to make that call that it wasn't worth it.
Okay. I personally feel like we should be investing in Valley Fest. I mean, it's been around for quite some time. Everybody knows what Valley Fest is. It's a great event. We should be supporting that. And also, only one of the current city council members was able to attend that fundraiser. I absolutely support Valley Fest and some of the other local things that are going on in our area, and I think we should focus on those.
Thank you. And Mr. Wick?
Yeah, I think we need to support little startup kind of events in the valley. But one of the things that we try to do with the funding, so there's different pots of money. One of the pots of money that the city has is a lodging tax. And that money is used for marketing to do events just like this. But one of the requirements they have is it to be a nonprofit. And one of my objections to the Crave event was that actually it was a for-profit entity that put on the Crave event. So we used public dollars to give to a for-profit entity. And so that's where my concern with the Crave event comes in, is it should have been a nonprofit to follow the regulations, and we should have used the lodging tax dollars, not the general fund dollars.
Okay, thank you. And then I would like to, Mr. Munch, you will get to reply on behalf of the city of the sitting council, so then we can move forward. Go ahead, please.
Okay. First of all, they are a nonprofit, so they changed their filing status shortly before the venue, and they are a nonprofit. Second of all, the other complaint that we heard was that they weren't giving any of their profit back to the Spokane Valley Food Bank, and they met with Spokane Valley Food Bank, and Spokane Valley Food Bank said give it to INB because they are the parent company and they will disperse it as needed. So I got that from both the promoter and Adam Hagstaff, so pretty sure that's what happened there. Secondly, the economic development fund that happened was we allow the staff to spend up to $50,000. So they didn't technically need to come to us with this, but they did come to us because they wanted our seal of approval. We all backed it because we believe in bringing new things to the Valley. Valley Fest is great, but it's only once a year, so we need more events. So that was why we did it, and next year they have to apply for funding just like anybody else, so that we won't be just giving it to them.
Okay, thank you. Moving right along. I don't know, do we plan for any breaks or something?
If you'd like to take a break, that'd be just fine.
Well, I'm fine for a little bit more, so I think we'll just push a little bit and then maybe let people out just for a few minutes. You can...
Closing about 7 or about 8:30,
Yeah.
so you've got maybe an hour to make sure you want.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that, everybody gets a break once in a while. All right, so the marijuana business has come up a few times. Tax on marijuana has come up a few times. And I have actually a question that pertains to how we deal with marijuana business in Spokane Valley. I would like to ask this question of the people who are currently on the city council. So we'll just kind of switch back and forth a little bit and see if we can keep the debate going like that. So I looked up some numbers today, and when it comes to marijuana numbers, I'm always just blown away. Blown away. I cannot, and I know I grew up in Europe. I'm here to tell you I have never smoked pot in my life, and I probably never will. I have no problem with people who do. I drink wine, so I can't really say anything about that. But I was blown away. So here's a number for you. A large portion of the state's recreational marijuana is actually grown and processed in Spokane Valley. There are 30 registered growers and processors within the city limits out here. One grower, the top grower, reported $2.4 million in sales in May alone. Not the whole year, not last year, not next month, May. $2.4 million, okay? Another grower reported $500,000. There's a handful that are around $120,000, $140,000. There are some who have licenses that they're not using right now, so they haven't really sold anything. Now, as you all know, you cannot get a new business license for any business that's associated with marijuana in Spokane Valley right now. So one of the things that does is it stops storefront businesses from opening. But it also means that some of these growers can't add on to their very successful facilities, and so they can't hire any more people. Is this a good or a bad policy for the city? Munch, you have a microphone. Why don't you give it a shot?
Okay. First off, it's a tough one, but it is legal in the state now, recreational and medical. I have absolutely no problem with the medical aspect of it. I think it needs to be explored more. And the recreational is, to me, you're an adult to make a wise decision. But my issue with it is that no matter how many hundreds of millions they're making every month or year in this state, little to none is ever coming back to the community. So if we open up and let a pot shop on every other street corner like Spokane has, all we've done is bring down neighboring values for those businesses that were already there, and we've got no real benefit because we might get a little bit on the sales tax, but we're definitely not getting any of the true money that's there. That's all being held up at state level, even though it was supposed to be passed off to us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Pam? Could somebody hand Pam a microphone, please? Thank you.
So I kind of agree. Am I on?
No, push the button. I know. And it takes a little while before. Here we go.
There. Okay.
Yeah,
now
you're on. Good.
So I kind of agree with Mike in that is that the citizens actually are who came to the council. It was previous to me being on the council, but it was citizens that came to the council saying they didn't want a pot shop on every corner. It does devalue some of the land next to it. I too drink wine, so no judgment calls. But it's true the taxes go to the state, which is a big benefit to the state. But really very little money comes down to the city. And I don't want to drive out the businesses that are here that have asked us not to put one next door to them in order to have a business that's not actually going to be contributing to our citizens.
Mayor Higgins, please.
Well, let's look at this from a different angle. I spent quite a bit of time in Nevada with the gaming industry, among other things that they do down there. The pot industry here is, as already described, the major amount of revenue goes to the state. The state does not share except very minute quantities of money trickling down. The problem is the social cost that pot creates is not being reimbursed by the state. So my question, I guess, is why in the world would we want to expand it? I'm not so sure, by the way, that we do block growers from expanding their growing operation. It's a retail side that we specifically object to.
Well, one of the growers that I talked to has an empty, or had at least an empty, part of his facility was empty. And in order to be able to use that facility, because I believe it wasn't attached to the main growing house or whatever, he would need a new license, and he could not obtain a new license. And some of these jobs are fairly well paid. I mean, and you know, so I don't know. Maybe I misunderstood.
Whenever I hear stories like that, I always think, well, I think we need to go back and find out why, if the license was denied. It probably wasn't on that basis. I don't know that for a fact.
No,
but
okay.
There's probably more to the story.
Okay, thank you. Collier, please.
So not to beat a dead horse, everybody on the council is already talking about it. We're not getting the revenue. And so everybody has brought up, why would we want to increase this? You know, one of the things that I was really proud of for our city was how approachable we were on this subject, because the vast majority of Spokane Valley citizens came to us and told us, we don't want these things all over our city. And so we listened to them. And so we restricted that, and there's currently 3 that reside in Spokane Valley, whereas you go to Spokane, they're everywhere. And that's not what our city wanted in Spokane Valley. The council here, we listened to you, and I'm proud of that.
Mr. Pace, please.
Well, there's 2 pieces of it. The libertarian in me says, hey, if you want to grow, sell, or smoke marijuana, go for it. But on the other hand, like Caleb said, I don't represent libertarians. I represent 96,000 residents of Spokane Valley, and my sense is most of them do not want any more retail outlets. So that's why I voted to restrict them to 3 retail outlets. The second piece you've heard before, all that money that's generated by that industry, we don't get hardly any of it. So if you want to help out with that, lobby with the state legislature and get it changed.
All right, thank you. I would like to just move on to another question. I have a question from the audience here that also overlaps a little bit with the question I came up with. So there's no name, so I don't know who this is from, but I'll just read it to you. It says here, South Barker is extremely congested, in traffic, and buildings of homes and churches combining with weekend traffic. So there's a lot of traffic on South Barker. I presently cannot open my window to cool off my upstairs bedroom because the stench of sewage outside is nauseating. I'm not quite sure where that comes from, but there must be some kind of problem. Will you listen to the people and oh, this is difficult. Aggressively interact with the county to bring happiness for those of us who have lived here for decades. Now, I would like to ask you all to comment on traffic. There's close to 100,000, almost 100,000 people out here now. The last number I saw was 96,000. I saw 98,000 somewhere. Those of us who drive, I'm a reporter. Argonne is an issue. Solomon is an issue. Barker is an issue. I went out to Barker and Sprague because people told me there's a traffic cop out there on Sunday morning when all the churches let out. And I was like, that can't be true. It is true. He's out there. So, because otherwise people can't get through the intersection. So the question is, any input on how to address the increased traffic here? And also, I'm not sure about the sewage problem. I don't think we can address that here right now. But do you feel like you listen to the people who've lived here for a long time? Pace, please.
In short, yes. Remember that $3 million surplus that we had? A good chunk of that is going to go to working on Barker, all the way from the south end, city limit, all the way up to Trent. And then, of course, we've got the bridging the valley going. We know it's a problem. We've heard from people. We had a rezone request for Barker and Sprague for 5 acres to do a multifamily project, and we said no, it doesn't fit that area. The area is already too congested. So we're listening. We're going to put money into that.
Okay. Ben Wick, please.
Sure. I think that we need to take a look at that. One of the things that back when I was on the city council, we actually had about a 70% grant matching for all the dollars that we were spending towards capital projects. Now that's slipped to about 40%, so that kind of shows we need to get back into planning for these things in advance before they become a problem. But we need to really kind of catch up on that and dedicate dollars to that. And one of the other things that we used to do is we used to have a joint meeting with the county commissioners to kind of talk about that, because half the hills in the valley and half of the road or the problem is in the county, where we have these large multi-family developments going in. So we need to kind of bring back that communication and encourage the council to do joint meetings with the county to really address both sides of the issue too.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jackson?
Hello again. In addition to the grant matching problem that's been stated before, and I know City Council isn't directly responsible for this, but we do have some impact on this. I've been told that we meet a lot of resistance when it comes to applying for and receiving grants from either the state or the county. And I think we need to change the way in which we ask for that money, because it needs to be considered more urgent, especially for the citizens, because that is money that would be in mass quantities available. I remember a story a bit ago in which we were sort of promised about $20 million for that project. We just needed our 2 state representatives to support the bill that was already going to pass, and neither one of them did. So that put the valley in a pickle, because if we have situations like that keep happening, then we're not going to see that money. And so I think we need to be both more forceful with state legislators and with our representatives to make sure that that money does in fact reach Spokane Valley.
Okay, thank you. And let's have you too, please, Mr. Merkel. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo those. I mean, we're talking about a few solutions to the traffic problem, grants, which is a great solution. Earlier we talked about possibly raising taxes. But, you know, what's the problem? The problem is really our unchecked growth. We're putting apartment complexes in places that were never designed for apartment complexes. Hundreds and hundreds of units all over the place. And that's what's really leading to the traffic. So for me, rather than trying to solve the problem at the city's dime or even the grants or the Fed's dime, which at some point we're going to have to because of where we are right now, I'd like to look at the developments themselves and say, hey, look, if you're going to put a development someplace, I want you to pay the true cost of that development. I'm not saying that I'm going to restrict what you can do with your property. You can do whatever you want with it. But if you're going to put up an apartment complex with 680 units or something like that on a road that was designed for 2 cars, well, gee, I think you should pay for that road to be fixed. You caused it, you pay for it.
Thank you. And we're done with that one. Now we're going to try and jump back and forth a little bit here. Yeah.
Can I just ask whoever wrote that question to come find me when this is over? I'd like to actually visit your property and see what's going on there.
Yeah, What was that?
Yeah, I'll smell the sewage.
Yeah. There is, I know this because I actually wrote this story about half a year ago. There is a closed off sewage system out there that was never, it's part of one development. It has never been hooked up to the main line. People who live there believe that the county goes out and empties it with a sewage truck or something. That is not true. But there is an empty system, so it's not been hooked up to any development, so it's possible that something is pooling in there. And I mean, I don't doubt that it smells bad, but anyway, I checked into that some time ago. I would like to follow up on what you just said, by the way, because I have a growth question that I came up with almost on my own. So I think we can all agree that the valley is growing at a record pace, or maybe not a record pace. It probably grew when Ben Wick's family was settling out here. The pace was probably more rapid, but it is growing at a high rate. There are many apartment developments. There are many new plots. There are many neighbors who see things change across the street from where they live. And one of these developments, and I'm using this solely as an example, is the development that's been proposed for the Painted Hills Golf Course. That development would bring 580 housing units onto the former golf course. And they break down like this. 228 apartments, 206 single-family homes, 52 ranchers, 40 estate homes, and some loft units on top of a commercial development that would run alongside Dishman Road. Now the residents out there some are very much opposed to this development because, you know, the way it's going to look. They bought a house next to a golf course. They don't want any change. Some are opposed to it because part of the property floods. The developer tells me that, you know, the flooding they can mitigate. That's not anything, nobody needs to worry about that. But most of the people out there are worried about traffic, and they're worried about the impact a development like that will have on the schools out there. So my question is this: how much of that responsibility should fall on the developer, if any, and do you support impact fees? Mike Munch?
We currently have impact fees, and that's one of the things that they're designed to address. Whether they cover the full scope or not, you know, is anybody's guess, because sometimes these issues don't show up for a few years because this developer didn't necessarily cause it, but then when the next guy comes in, it does. So I'm for development fees because I do believe, you know, if you're going to put something in that's going to impact the infrastructure, it needs to be paid for. But at the same time, we need to be very cognizant of all the other taxes and fees that we get off of that with all these new homes and new apartments and different things like that. So it's a multi-pronged thing where you can't just say you have to pay $1 million or you have to pay $500,000, you know. And as far as that one, the Dishman Hills development goes, they're having to put in turn lanes and different things like that to ease the flow.
That's true. Linda, please.
Well, I agree with Mike that there needs to be impact fees. I live in a neighborhood that had a development go in that only had to put in lanes instead of streets, and so a fire truck can't get up in there. And I'm really concerned about that, of public safety, and out in the far ends of the valley to be able to get ambulances, fire trucks, whatever it would take to get people safely in or out from there. And so I think it has to be well planned. And to be able to also look at our schools, impacting our schools. Right, that area is right by Chester Elementary and Horizon Junior High and U High, and they're already bursting at the seams in some places in those classrooms. Are building a new Ponderosa school as well. The district's done great to do that. But I think it has to be quality of neighborhood and maintaining the integrity of the neighborhoods that people have their whole lives in and expect to have a home they can cherish.
Okay. Mr. Woods, please.
Excuse me. I think that we certainly should have the impact fees, but I think that we're also going to have to understand that the city's going to grow. Where I lived at in my life, the different places I lived, it's changed. It's full of people. That's just a fact that's going to happen to a city that's growing. Our world is changing. But I think that the impact with the schools is going to be the most one that needs to be really looked at, because schools are full. You can't even, and that sounds like that's a lot of units, 600 and something. So I don't know, but I don't oppose development and expansion of the city housing. Hopefully some of it's going to be for low-income people.
Thank you. Mr. Samson, please.
I agree with Lloyd. The impact fees are definitely important in this. The city is growing. And that's just something that's going to happen. We're regulated by the state, so we have certain things that we have to do and certain things, rules that we have to follow with the growth. And so that's all that I really have to say about that one.
Okay. Pam?
So, yeah, I agree that we need to have impact fees. I think it's a challenge when you're growing as fast as we are, and we are growing very quickly. The other challenge is the builders are going to build what people want, and currently people want apartments. So people, millennials, don't want to take care of yards. There's, saying more time traveling, kind of the tiny home movement. And as the baby boomers get older, they also don't want to handle their yards and stuff as much. So the demand is on apartments. So finding a way to mitigate some of the problems that those apartments cause is going to be really important.
Okay, thank you. So I think we're going to go like 5 more minutes and then take a short break. Yes, sir, briefly.
I was just wondering if I could answer that question. I'd really like to, but.
Okay, briefly.
Yeah, just real brief. Obviously, I don't have enough time to really go through. This is really a complex issue, but I brought it up, and I'd really like to speak to the fact that impact fees right now, we have some on the books. When I asked how those were calculated, I found out that they were calculated based off of some other city. So in other words, we copied someone else. We said, that's good enough. The truth is that our schools only have really 3 ways to get funding. One of them is through bonds that they pass. The other is matching funds from the state. And the third, the most important, is impact fees from the city that we garner from these developments. It's hard to collect the property tax and the sales tax needed to fund our schools because of our tax system. And these impact fees are super, super important.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to discuss a lot more about this at my event. So.
Thank you, and thank you. So I have some questions here from the audience. They're kind of piling up. And I will ask a question, and if you would like to respond to this question, please raise your hand. I hope you don't all raise your hands. I'm trying to spread out, the speaking time here as best as I can. Now, the one question here I believe I can answer. This is for Mike Munch. It says, you said you are a longtime resident. How long have you lived in Spokane Valley? And I believe you said you lived here for 2 years. Right. Okay. So I could answer that one. So there you go. The next question is a general question. It says, you want to allow residents to have farm animals in their backyards. Have you really considered the odorous ramifications? I'm not good at odorous ramifications. They will smell. And of such a proposal. Who would like to take a stab at the farm animals? Ed Pace, please.
Well, we have to, I'm one of the ones that's for this. It's partly a property rights thing. It's partly let's get the valley back to the way it used to be, at least as far as character and culture and so on. But we have to separate the hog from the stink. It's one thing to say that you're allowed to raise a pig in your backyard or a goat or whatever, but you're not allowed to have the neighbor be bothered by it. And so we have to use our code enforcement process to enforce that, so that if a neighbor complains about smell or vermin or any other negative effects, that we have a way to deal with it and shut it down, get them to either clean up or shut it down.
Right. Celia?
So I'm one of those who's not really for the farm animals in the backyard. I'm all for keeping the character of the valley, but we aren't the old rural valley anymore. And anybody who's ever had pigs knows how smart pigs are. And also how adorable and cute they are. I have a friend who has a pet pig that's approximately 200 pounds and yes, still comes in the house. So do I want to be the one who tells this pig's name's Lucy, tells the owner of Lucy, I'm sorry, your neighbor doesn't like the smell of your pig, so you need to get rid of it. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to pay for the impact of it. Goats and pigs are smart. They get out, they dig out, they butt their heads out, they make their way out.
Okay. You want to say one? Oh, yeah, no, you have llamas.
I know. So, well, we can't keep it the same as what it was. We want to be able to preserve some pieces of our heritage. And so with those that have farms, whether they be llamas, cows, we need to be able to protect that too. I mean, they were raised here, their families were here, and we want to preserve a little bit of our heritage as well. That's why we became a city, to kind of control our own destiny. And so it's an important aspect to my mind.
Okay, thank you. I have another general question. This is for all candidates. How will you advocate for disabled citizens when they have questions or issues? For instance, housing, public access, discrimination. I think the question goes along the lines of, will the city create a committee that could address some of these issues for disabled citizens? Yes, sir? You need a microphone.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Everybody jumps over.
Is this working? If I'm elected,
Don't
that's
hit
what
him
I would like to see increased, is more participation with committees, with people. I think that we need them for drug abuse and like the individual Dan was bringing up. And maybe, I don't know if we have an ombudsman or we don't. Maybe at some point we could get a volunteer position for that. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I will.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just appreciate that the council has supported people of disability with some funding for special projects, and making the sidewalks accessible for all, those kinds of things. I think sometimes we don't even see the disabilities that people have. And I think it's just about making this a friendly city, a safe city, and finding all the kinds of ways, even like removing the snow off of sidewalks. People who have to walk into the street on Dishman Micah, how are they supposed to get where they're supposed to be safely? I think that has to be priority, to look at how do our kids ride a bike down the street, how do wheelchair-bound people be able to move, making sure that we have the doors open so that people can get safely into a door. I think it is a good idea to have a committee. I think our council has done a good job at supporting that, but I'd like to see more.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to address that if I could.
Sure.
I think that we should develop a committee to help out the elderly. I think that it should come from the county jail, to have some of the inmates get out there and help the elderly. Also, we need to have sidewalks first, ordinance before they can shovel sidewalks.
Well,
some folks in town don't have sidewalks.
Sidewalks are not always welcome. There are property owners who would prefer not to have sidewalks, because with sidewalks come maintenance.
That could be true, but it's also a safety issue as well, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying that not everybody is a sidewalk fan. I think we saw that last year. I wrote a lot of stories about that, for sure. So,
I didn't catch the stories last year. But
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pia.
Mr. Collier, you look like you want to say something.
I do, yes. I got one. Thank you. A committee is a great idea, but government is not the answer, to paraphrase Ronald Reagan. This should occur, but it should occur organically. Laura Rentz is in the audience. She has an organization with service dogs, and she came to us, and a number of council members met with her and directed her in the right direction. She's got a great organization now, and it's outside of the government. That is the solution for Spokane Valley.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I think we should take a short break, 5 minutes. I have questions about law enforcement that are important that we should probably get to before the end of the hour. And I have, let's see here, I have some questions about the library and like the future of that situation. But let's take a break, like 5 minutes, be back 20 to 8. Does that work for everybody? Thank you.
Back here, and probably dry and need some water right now.
It's nice to meet you.
We're all friends here, whatever.
Somebody reminds us.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit too early. I appreciate that.
I'm bleeding, so I'm not going to shake your hand. But you're so funny because my grandkids were at your house today doing swimming lessons. I didn't realize the same Jackson.
Yeah,
they're the daycare up on.
Yes.
Yes.
Jolene?
Jolene. Everything from
everybody, could you please find your seats? Am I not on?
All right, everybody, can you please return to your seats? We'll get the ball rolling again. Thank you.
Is my microphone not on? Now it is. Now you can hear me.
I'm just louder.
Be louder. All right, people, please.
All right, everybody, their seats, please. To your seats.
Come back and sit down if you would, please. Thank you. We're missing Bo. I can't, I'm not fast enough. Okay, we're almost back. Looks like we're almost back, right? All the candidates are back. That's all we need. Let's get the show on the road. So we have a few more questions to go through. I have lots of questions from the audience, and I will get to as many of them as I can. However, I do feel like there are certain topics that we must cover, and one of those topics is public safety. Police, what are we doing? How are things going? So I had the pleasure of doing a ride-along with a police officer not too long ago, because I'm writing a big story about how difficult it has become to hire law enforcement officers. Years ago, there were hundreds of applicants every time there was a police academy. Now, if they get 40, they're super excited. I went to visit the police academy the other day, and I was surprised. Maybe I'm naive, I don't know. I was surprised that the recruits were much older than I thought they would. I thought, 23, right? Sort of buff and strong and no bad knees and all like the rest of us have. But most of the recruits I talked to were in their 30s, if not in their 40s. So that was kind of an eye-opening experience. Where I'm going with all this is I have some questions about public safety. And I want to just open up with a blanket open-ended question and I want everybody to answer this if we can possibly get to it. So please be concise when think of what you want to say. Public safety takes up about 1/3 of the city's budget. We need more officers. Citizens come in and they ask for more officers. Citizens come in and they ask for more investigations into property crimes. The police department is having a difficult time hiring people, qualified people, and the contract is being renegotiated right now, so I don't really have any numbers. I can't say, it's this much or that much. But I want you to consider this question. Assuming that you want to keep the budget to budget growth to no more than 2% or 1%, how would you suggest that the Valley goes about attracting more police officers? And for those of you who don't know, let me just briefly say that the Valley contracts for policing service with the sheriff's office. So that, there's like we hire a contractor to come out here and be police for us. But any ideas as to how you could possibly attract more quality police officers to Spokane Valley? Mr. Woods.
Well, I personally think that the contract amount is too low to support the law enforcement needs in our community. So it goes back to the roads and everything. We're going to have to make some hard choices really soon on if there's going to be a need for a small property tax increase. And we need to pay the contract has got to be on par with the other law enforcement agencies to pay, the patrolmen.
Okay.
That's the only way to attract good quality officers.
Mayor Higgins, please, you had your hand up there. We'll let you go.
Well, as you pointed out, we are a contract city. We contract with the county. The county pays the police force that we have because they're all deputy sheriffs. The problem is those deputies are under a union contract. So that's an area that we cannot get into. It's negotiated with the county. It's bargained for. If the county raised their rate, of course, we, through our settle and adjust, would normally just pick up that additional cost. Right now, a quick calculation from our projected budget for 2018, the public safety portion of our budget is 62% of our total. Now, that's a whole bunch of money, and that's the one reason why we couldn't hold our budget below 1% is because the cost of public safety was 2%. And you get a tremendous weighted average in there, and it's gone.
Merkel, please.
This is really a great question. I really appreciate it, Pia. But I also have to kind of contest the question because ultimately you're asking me, as Mayor Higgins just pointed out, we're a contract city. You're asking me, how can we hire people for the contractor? And honestly, that's kind of backwards thinking. And that's what I've seen. I'm a contracts officer. That's what I've seen represented in this contract. I sat down with the sheriff not even a week ago to discuss how we could better change this around. What we need is a contract that focuses on performance, on outcomes, rather than on butts in seats and figuring out how we're going to pay for people and how they really, that's the sheriff's problem. We need to open up that budget, let them figure out how they can staff their own people, however that might be, whether that's, and you're talking about the county union issues and all. Again, that's all the contractor's problem, right? What we need to do is focus on what are the outcomes that we want out of this contract, not how do we fill the butts in seats.
Okay, thank you. Jackson?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it as well. I do support Merkel's opinion to a certain extent that we need to actually look for contracting options and make sure that they do take care of a lot of that in-house. But the other thing I wanted to touch on that's actually important to me is that we create an environment in which crime goes down. I mean, to be quite frank, we actually need to do more community service events, and we need excuses to go out and hang out with each other, because those are the types of environments in which crime decreases. So in addition to looking for contracting options, I 100% agree that we need to actually do more things in the community base. And I think the City Council has a lot of opportunity to actually make sure that people come together and start those things. I mean, teach swimming lessons in the Valley. I know a lot of you already, so that's a good place to start.
Okay. Brandi, would you like to say something? Because I know you're on the Citizens Advisory Board, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Part of the problem, as you had mentioned, is that the City of Spokane pays more than the sheriffs of the county sheriff. And with the current climate that's going on with law enforcement officers, people are not wanting to get in those jobs right now, which is a problem. We need to support our contract. We also need to support our local law enforcement officers, and whether that be looking into some other funding of whatever sources. I mean, it's definitely an issue that we're facing as the Valley, but because the wages are not competitive, it's a real problem. And I can't say that I have a solution. It's definitely something that I am researching, and I would love to talk about that further, but I mean, it's a problem. For sure.
Okay, so let's do Pace and Collier, and then I want to come back to you, Brandi, because you have experience from I have a question about the Citizen Advisory Board. Pace, please.
So I've been advocating for the past few years that we figure out how to get around the system and create a Spokane Valley police bonus so that our Spokane Valley police officers, funded by City of Spokane Valley and administered by it, so our police officers are paid, have pay and benefits equal to that of City of Spokane, because equal pay for equal work is important, and that's what this is really about.
Collier?
So one of the things that I was advocating during the budget retreat was for kind of what Ed's talking about, a way for us to encourage a recruitment and also fund a property crimes task force, which I believe is really important to Spokane Valley. And so the drainage, basically, that has already been brought up, we currently have, we maintain our budget at 50% to where we're able to fund our city for a certain amount of time in case of economic calamity. But if it ever goes above that, we're able to drain off some of that funds. And so what I was advocating for was using some of that money to, number one, fund this property crimes task force, and number two, to serve as a one-time recruitment incentive for police officers who want to work in Spokane Valley.
Okay, thank you. Brandi, I want to go back to you now, if I could touch on that really quick. Very quickly, please.
Mark Werner, who is the police chief, actually has a $100,000 grant that he received for a property crime task force, and this was implemented in 2012, and it was very successful. So he does have those funds, and that is something that they were talking about as well.
Grants go away.
They do? Yeah. Yeah, grants go away. I want to go back because I have a few questions here about the Citizens Advisory Board, and since you serve on the board. At one point there was a conversation about having a separate Citizens Advisory Board for the Valley Police Department. Any thoughts on that? You've sort of seen it from the inside. Do you think that would make a difference? And then I'll have, let's say, 2 or 3 other people respond to the same question.
Okay.
Brandi,
I believe that the Citizens Advisory Board that we have is actually a great thing. Most of the members that are on the board as we speak are from the Valley, so they are representing our Valley citizens. They actually just got a nomination for 2017 for Partners in Justice. We also are getting the 2017 National Conference, which is a big deal. They're doing great things, and you don't hear about them in the news because they're not doing things that are wrong. They do a lot of the work in volunteer time. We get binders that are this thick that we go through, and we are not there to determine fault. We are there to recommend policy and change procedures, and we've done a great job of doing so. I believe that would be a waste of taxpayers' time and money if that is something they wanted to explore, and we don't need oversight over oversight.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to comment on the Citizen Advisory Board? Pace, please.
Sure. I was the one that proposed, I worked with a couple lawyers and wrote out a proposal for how our city could have a citizens oversight committee over our police department, not over the sheriff's department. The Citizens Advisory Board is for the whole sheriff's department, and the sheriff has a right to have that if he wants. But oversight, which we got input from citizens about it, oversight needs to be totally independent of the agency it's overseeing. And so my proposal was that we have a committee, a board, similar to the Planning Commission, where people apply to it, the city council appoints them, and they serve for a 1, 2, or 3-year term. And so that's what I had in mind for our Citizen Advisory Board. Council appoints it, they report to the council, not to the police chief.
Thank you. Pam, did you want to say something?
Well, I think that it does seem redundant to have a Citizen Advisory Council oversee a Citizen Advisory Council. So if the question, I mean, I don't know, I'm starting to wrap my head around it a little bit, I guess. If there's a specific reason for it, other than just we want to oversee our City of Spokane Valley police officers, which is not really a huge number either. I feel like it's redundant.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Briefly.
Just real brief, I want to point out again, we're talking about a contract. So if we're worried about oversight on a contract, it should be built into the contract and should have contractual weight. And that to me, you know, if there was a consideration of making a change, it wouldn't be adding more advisory boards that, again, how is their impact measured? It would be looking at the contract and building that in there.
So I believe from what I've heard from city staff that that's one of the things that they're working on this time, and the contract is not ready yet, but if off the top of my head, I believe it's late July, there'll be a presentation at one of the city council meetings. And so that's of course a good place to show up and see, you know, what they came up with, because things, you know, may have changed. Did you want to say one more thing? Yes. Okay.
I just want to point out that the current Citizens Advisory Board appoints their own members. We are independent. The sheriff does not have any say in any of those matters, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. And I have a couple that are really not city council business. Sorry, guys. We're going to try and keep it here in the Valley for a bit. There are questions about childhood vaccinations. You know, should children be vaccinated? There are school district questions that they should be taken to the school district. And since we don't have a lot of time tonight, please don't be disappointed or take it personally. There are some issues, the city issues that we need to deal with instead. So I'm going to try to get to some of those. And now this is the one out of left field, punt, no pun intended, that I'm going to allow. So we'll see how you'll address this. This person says, Spokane Valley has a reputation, sadly, for not being very diverse or tolerant. What can you do as a council member to improve this? Yes, sir. Munch, please, you need a microphone. Thank you.
I don't believe that the city council can or should do anything to improve that other than making sure everything's fair across the board for everybody. You know, we're a country founded on laws and rules, and as long as everybody's following those laws and rules, it takes care of any of those kind of things. So to actually set out and attract a specific subset of people doesn't make any sense to me and doesn't seem to be any part of city business.
Jackson, please. And then you.
I may actually need to stretch my legs for a little bit, so just forgive me. I want to push back a little bit against the response we just had, because I do 100% agree with what he said on paper in text, but in actual practice what happens is if you say something like that and you still go about doing things the way you tend to do things, it still puts people off and it still makes it a non-welcoming environment. So we actually have to look for more creative solutions to actually bring people to council meetings, for example, to make them feel like they're part of the process. And we can say these things that make sense on paper in text, but until we actually start making environments where people want to come participate, it's not going to achieve the goals we want them to. And so I think we need to start there by making at least council meetings more accessible, more open, and more fun.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins?
When I hear assertions such as that, you have to take a step back and say, okay, is that person trying to treat us as if we're marionettes here? And so they make an off the wall, as you couched it, claim like that as I look out in the audience here, if that were indeed so, I don't think anybody would be here. I think it's bogus, quite frankly. I don't agree.
Okay. Linda?
I think we do have a very diverse community if we embrace one another for the people that we are. A lot of people sometimes are not who they truly are because they might be afraid, and I think we have to keep moving forward as a community to embrace people, not just by their race, their color, but just by who they are. I just think about what we don't know that someone else is going through. I have friends who've recently lost their husbands, their siblings, people who are struggling with the loss of a job. That is diversity. Poverty is part of a diverse group. Trying to figure out how we can be kind and friendly to one another and make this city a place where people want to come and visit. And I think we are that. I just think we need to work more on being friendly and kind and embracing one another for whatever we don't know the other one might be going through.
Okay. Mr. Wick, please.
Sure, and I feel like one of the other main responsibilities as a city council member is to be a facilitator. I mean, it might not be city business, but we're here to help bridge connections. We're the ones out in the community working with individuals, and we may be finding, for instance, I had on the campaign trail last time a young lady that came up to me and said, how are you going to help me keep my child? That's not something that's city business, but she was going through a divorce and things of that nature. So I was able to help direct her over to a nonprofit that helps with legal services and things of that nature. So we're here to kind of help get the information out and be facilitators. We're almost kind of like traffic control people, where you get to kind of direct people into the right services that they may not know about. And so I see that as another important piece of being a city councilman.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Sure.
Yeah, you asked about two pieces, diversity and tolerance. On the diversity side, I don't think that there's anything the council should do to increase diversity, because we're elected to represent the citizens who live right here in the valley right now, not elected to represent people in Idaho or San Francisco or Texas or someplace else. So increasing diversity shouldn't be the council's job. When it comes to tolerance, on the other hand, we have to recognize that we're a nation of laws and we have legal regards where it comes to tolerance, and we need to make sure that if there's any tolerance violation in terms of laws that isn't being addressed, that we look at those issues specifically.
All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I think that one of the things that we can do is abolish the at-large election process for our city council, because I haven't seen anybody from the poor neighborhood that I live in that's ever had a city councilman represent that area.
Okay.
And I think that's very, very important that the council members come from the neighborhoods.
Okay, so let's explore that for a moment, because that's actually a one-liner question that I have here. Well, there's two sides to it, but the Valley is not districts. You are elected at large. Spokane became a district city, I think, 15 years ago, something like that. I vaguely remember writing the story. And so what are pros and cons to districts? Excuse me. And I think it's probably important to see if we can get through everybody about that question. District's a good idea, district's a bad idea.
Can I
And
just
you-
comment one thing?
And you can throw one thing in about term limits too, if you'd like, yes or no, but let's make it quickly. So please go ahead, sir.
We're a code city, so it takes the city council can do it.
Yes,
Okay,
I understand that.
okay.
Yeah. But do you support districts or not?
I support districting so that we can have equal representation.
Okay, thank you. Just go down the line.
Okay, well, I'm open to districts. I was thinking today, I've lived in Green Acres, Opportunity, Ponderosa, Edgecliff. Not that I've moved around a lot, but I've lived here a long time. And my folks built a house on the corner of Broadway and Flora when my grandparents asked me, are you going to come back for Christmas? And we lived in Spokane. It was a rural area. And so things have changed, but the diversity of the communities is important to be recognized. There are some incredible, passionate people who live in the Edgecliff community who feel their voices are not being heard. And so I'm okay with districts. I think it's a discussion we should have, because the more representation we have from the entire city, the more rich our conversations will be and the resources we can bring together.
Thank you. Mr. Munch?
I've thought about this quite a bit since I got appointed and realized that we were an at-large city, because I didn't even realize it until then. But I like the at-large, honestly. Yeah, you may not pick up representation in every district, but I want it to be people that truly want to run and truly want to do something. And if we make it into districts, then you're painting boxes that, 3 or 4 people may live in the same neighborhood, but that doesn't mean they all think the same anyway either. And right now, anybody can run from any district, so we're not excluding anybody with being at large.
Thank you. Mr. Pace, please.
I'm okay with districts, but I wouldn't want to mandate it at the city council. What I'd like to see, if folks in the city really want to participate and really want districts, I'd like to see a grassroots movement of all the neighborhoods, Ponderosa, Green Acres, Edgecliff, on, form neighborhood associations and make things happen. Similar, Green Acres kind of does that, and make things happen. And then start a petition drive to use the initiative process to get it on the ballot that we have districts. That's the way to really do it. Otherwise, we're just going to get into 96,000 people divided by 7, and people still aren't going to participate.
Thank you. Mr. Wick?
I mean, I'm open to the discussion, but I'm a little hesitant about districts for 2 reasons. One is when you get into districts, people have a tendency to fight for projects just within their district. And right now at large, we represent the entire city. So I would represent Edgecliff, I'd represent Dishman Hills, Opportunity. We'd represent the whole city, and so you have that more holistic approach. So that's number 1 reason. Number 2 reason is we're still a new city, and at times they're still struggling to fill 7 city council positions. I know you have 13 candidates here today, but in the last election there were unopposed positions. And so, yeah, I think that if we had more people turning out and wanting to be a part of the process, districts could be something that we should go for. But right now I feel like we struggle to fill 7 council members or giving choices at the ballot box. And so that's my other hesitation.
I fear no discussion, and so I would certainly encourage the council to have this discussion. That being said, I generally would oppose moving into districts for a lot of the reasons that Ben just talked about. It can be very hard to find people to run for these positions, and currently we're encouraging all 96,000 residents of Spokane Valley to come out and apply or run for this. This is something that's in America's nature, is citizen representation, and if we try to put that in a box, I think we move away from our history. And currently in Mr. Wood's district, nothing's stopping people from there to run. It's not happening, and it's not happening organically. So,
okay. Brandi, please.
I completely agree with Ben, and I've thought a lot about this as well. I don't think that it's a bad conversation to have, and I definitely think that it's a good suggestion. But just like everybody else has said, when you focus it like that, it's hard to get that many people to be interested. Unlike this year, I mean, it's definitely not the norm, but we should be representing everybody. I mean, it shouldn't matter what district you come from or where you come from or what you stand for, which is also why this is nonpartisan. We should be up here representing everybody, not just the districts we come from.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins?
I think Ben nailed it very nicely. Good job. If you want an example, look to the West. The West is messed up. I would say to you, if it ain't broke, leave it alone.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Ben said. I mean, we see the problems with individuals coming from specific areas advocating for their specific area. We see that in Congress every day. You know, you end up with a lot of deadlock. You end up with folks who won't compromise because they're standing for, you know, a very tiny, small minority of people who are in one area of Spokane. They won't compromise with somebody in another area. So I think if we were to move to districts, I'd like to see a mixed system where you would have district representatives, but you would also have some at-large representatives who could focus on the greater good and could make those compromises through their votes in the system. So if we were to look at it, that would be the way to go. That being said, I also agree with what some of my colleagues here have said, which is that we're still a young city. We're still trying to figure this out. We're still trying to work together, and so I'm not sure this is the right time.
Okay. Jackson?
Districting, no, but I want to also give some credence to Ingemar Woods' statement as well, because by the same token, historically, if I'm to use a larger example, most presidents of the United States for historical and actual reasons come from East Coast areas. And it's not because everyone doesn't have the ability to run, it's because those people tend to feel more empowered to do that. And so I at least want to be a voice on the council that can encourage more of those people to participate, because we can say these things, but if we're not taking proactive steps to make them feel welcome and feel comfortable in that zone, then districting or not, they're still not going to participate.
Thank you. Pam?
I would agree. I like the at-large, and I haven't noticed a huge problem with people running against people because I have quite the slate. So
you're very popular.
Yes. Didn't realize it till now. So I'm going to touch on term limits briefly.
Yes, please.
I believe that term limits takes away the power from the people. I believe that your vote matters. I believe that if you want someone voted out, you will vote them out. If you want somebody to stay in, you'll make sure they stay in. We're not it's not national. It's completely different if you're in Congress, but we're so close to the people. You guys know what we're doing. You know who to vote for.
Yeah, Samson.
I'm actually for districts. I think that it's kind of like when I went to city council, and the reason why I'm running is because I didn't get any reply back other than from one person. And I want to know that, I want the people to know that that's my guy right there. That's the one I'm going to talk to. That's the one that's going to represent me. That's the one that's going to take it to the whole council and fight for what I want to get done for the people.
Thank you. And you wanted to follow up. Now, I know you have two microphones. I don't know what to do about that.
The reason why I want to is because I don't think it holds that an at-large, the way we're doing it right now, that it works better. Because what happens if you get a candidate from the poorer areas, he usually knows less people and he has less money. So he's at a disadvantage, or she is, of getting elected. And that's why you want districting, because it keeps it at a local demographic, and it's just better. I just don't see how the at-large works better for this community.
Okay, thank you. What, follow-up, sir, please?
Well, we kind of left off term limits there for just a second. Pam brought it back up again. And she nailed it again, which is, when you look at the dais on our city council, every person sitting there is there because of imposed term limits, not legislatively imposed, but because you somehow imposed them, okay? So it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and as Pam mentioned, it almost portrays a distrust of the voter, that they don't know what they're doing, that they can't take out somebody that they don't want. So I'm against term limits. Now, having said that, the next time you hear that this city council's in lockstep, you'll hear a lot different when this comes up on our agenda.
Thank you. No, we're done. Thank you. Because I have like, about 15 minutes left and a few other issues that I want to get to. So I'm trying to use the questions from the audience to ask questions that are also address broader issues. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is social services. I know that because I've sit through the allocation, the Valley offers about $150,000 a year in a sort of competitive bid process for social services organizations. So you can apply you can submit your proposal, tell them why you need money for something. It's a highly competitive process, and there's never enough money. There's always more organizations, sometimes 2 or 3 or almost 4 times as many applicants or applications as there really is money. So we're back to about $150,000. Now, if we say that 95,000 people live out here, that's about $1.50, about $1.60 per person towards social services or nonprofit organizations every year. Now, this ties into the question that I have here. One of the organizations that provides social services or nonprofit connections for people who need help is Spokane Valley Partners. And this question is specifically for Ed Pace and the question is, at the Economic Social Development Funding session, did you vote for or against funding for Spokane Valley Partners? Now, I don't want to put you I'll put you on the spot a little bit, but I would like to have more of an open-ended conversation about where the Valley, if the city of the Valley has a responsibility when it comes to social issues, because we all know that the biggest providers are downtown Spokane. And so it's easy to send people out of this city and into another city to ask for services. But so go ahead and tell me, please, if you voted to support Valley Partners first.
First of all, I just want to make a comment that $150,000, it's not just social service organizations, it's also economic development projects and organizations. So it's both. I don't think I did. I know I voted for like $22,000 for Meals on Wheels, and I voted for some money for Valley Fest. And I don't think I was 0 for Chamber of Commerce, and I think I was 0 for Valley Partners, but I'd have to check to be sure.
All right. It sounds like from the question, and this is not something that I know, that there was a recent story in the Inlander where it sounded like you supported Valley Partners, but I have not read that story, so I don't know.
That story was about a tweet I made about how it was a response to something I heard on National Public Radio, and it was about how you can tell the quality of a country by how it takes care of its people. And my tweet was, countries don't take care of people, society doesn't. People take care of people, parents take care of children, and so on. And so that got into the Inlander interviewing me about what's government role in social services. And I said, other than a safety net, and I want to make it clear, I believe in a safety net. Other than a safety net, 0. And that's the role of faith communities, people of goodwill, and so on. So I'm a big supporter of Valley Partners, but I think they should be funded by the churches and so on.
By the churches, okay.
Likewise, one of the specific questions was, should our city do like City of Spokane does, and give tax dollars to Catholic Charities for the House of Charity? I said, no, that's a ministry of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church should fund it, not taxpayer dollars. And I'm saying this as a pastor.
So let me rephrase the question a little bit. I mean, there's 100,000 people living, not 100, 96,000 people living in Spokane Valley, and some of them are bound to be homeless or have issues that are beyond their control. Addiction, I don't know what else to mention right now. So if does the city have a responsibility toward that group of people or not?
Taxpayer dollars, city government, no.
Okay, thank you. Samson? Well, I'll try to get to all of you. I just want like a broad idea as to where you stand on social services.
This is just a very touching issue for me. So.
Okay. Go ahead.
Social services, it is our responsibility as a city to help these homeless people out, especially homeless veterans. These are guys who went to war for us. And for us as a city to just turn our back on them and not help them out and give them a hand up, not necessarily a hand out. That's what I want to really say about it. I'm really concerned about these homeless veterans. We're about to skyrocket in population, folks. If you've ever gone down Mansfield and all the apartment complexes that are going up, each of those complexes, I think, what are 25 per building homes?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're like 25, and there is approximately 20 to 30 buildings going up, and this is, our population is going to grow, crime's going to rise, homelessness is going to happen. We need to get a handle on it right now, folks.
Thank you. Whoop. Anybody else interested in commenting? Okay, Linda, why don't we let you go first?
The organization I work with does receive money from social services. I work for the Greater Spokane Substance Abuse Council, and with I think we get just over $3,000. That's invested in our middle and high school students with the Washington Drug Free Youth Program. That is critical to helping our kids make the choice to be drug-free, because as we talked about the marijuana issue earlier, $184 million of excise tax, and we get $12,000 here in this county through our community, and $238,000 through a 6-county region to do prevention. It's critical that we find ways to help leverage resources that are out there and to prioritize those in need, which is our kids, making sure that they have the resources they need to make positive choices, because we're growing a drug-free workforce. And as employers talk to me and say, I can't even find somebody to fill my position because they can't pass a drug test, I can say, look at a Whitify kid, look at a drug-free kid. And that's the investment in our community.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ben Wick?
Yeah, it takes a community to raise a family or raise a child, and so I think it's going to take a community to help with social services. Now, whether that's general fund dollars or not, I think is something different. But while I was on the city council, I helped serve on the SNAP board, where we tried to reach out and do household repairs. There's a lot of different programs and things there. The other thing that we also can do as a city is try and help advocate for some of these different pools of money. So there's more than just our local tax dollars or property taxes and things. It's bringing back the state dollars or federal dollars. And I think that's where we can kind of be that facilitator role again to provide services.
All right, thank you. Woods, please.
Yeah, I think that it's really tough to get any type of more funding for the social programs, but I think an important thing is also to have the right culture in the local government, and to have perceptions that people are poor or criminals, the former criminals, or drug addicted or scumbags is the wrong attitude to have. People's people, and we're not all born the same capabilities or intelligence levels. But I think it's going to be one of the critical things for the next 10 years or so for our community to find some type of buy-in to help the disadvantaged and the people that are not, can do things like a lot of people can. Not everybody's born the same.
No, thank you. Mr. Merkel?
Hey, I'd like to echo some things that a couple of my colleagues have said. Caleb earlier said that you have needs and you have wants, and I think that's an important key here is we have needs and we have wants. I'd like to also echo something that Mr. Woods said, which is that we need to look at our culture. If I'm honest with you right now in the Valley, and I went and met with Jennifer, who is the president of Spokane Valley Partners, which is an organization that I truly support, they are getting 80 to 85% of their funding from donations of people, churches, folks, regular donations, all right? If you look at our city structure, they're just about the only social services that we have. And you know what? We don't have the homelessness problem that Spokane has. So as a city, we're giving them this little tiny percentage, 15, 18%, whatever, of their annual budget through competitive grants that they compete for. We need to continue that support because, not to be cold, but the alternative is to have an increased homelessness problem, which is actually a detriment to business.
Mr. Higgins?
Al brings up an interesting point. One of the pressures, I'm sure, pushing this question is we're getting nudging, or more than that, from downtown that want us to have a line item in our budget for social services. Okay, now earlier tonight we were talking about maintaining our roads and the problems we've got there. Now, put yourself on the dais for just a second in our shoes and say to yourself, do I want to tax my neighbor to provide a social service out there, or I bet every one of you in here gives to a charity of your choosing, okay? Which is the better way to go? I simply have to hold out the question.
All right, Mr. Collier?
I'm going to piggyback off of Rod there. When you give to a charity, there's a lot of joy in that. I myself, I give to charities. I've volunteered my time, and I get a lot of a joy in doing something like that. But when the government takes my money and gives it to somebody else, saying that this is charity, there's no joy in that for me. And so this is not the solution for Spokane Valley. I talked about Laura Rentz earlier and how it's happened organically. That's the solution. That's what Spokane Valley Partners is doing. 80% of their donations are coming from you all, and that's the way we need to continue it.
Jackson?
Just so the audience doesn't forget, one of the, I guess, privileges of being on city council is that you make a lot of connections. So I too tend to share the belief that with a budget of our size and scope, social services are probably one of the first things to go. But having said that, I also want to echo the thought that we also know other people. And so when you approach council members, the idea is that we put you in the direction you need to go to actually make these problems get solved and to make good progress on them.
Okay, thank you. You get to one follow-up, Woods, please. Oh, wait, hang on. Brandi, did you want to say something?
Yes, please.
Okay, you go first, and then Woods, you get the last word.
Okay, so as Linda touched on, prevention is an absolute must that needs to happen. I know that people would think that social issues is not a city issue, but it's becoming an issue. We do have a homeless problem. We do have drug problems and crime going on in our city, and it's something we need to address. We lost $1.2 million worth of funding in community mobilization from the state budget. That's huge. And there's only 2 places right now that are getting prevention, and that's East Valley and East Central Community. That's not representative of what's going on in our city. I think we definitely need to talk to our legislators, and I think that this is a problem that we need to have further discussions on. Also, our Spokane County Jail is the 2nd largest mental health facility in Washington State. That's a problem. It's something we definitely need to research and have a better solution.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Woods, you get to wrap it all up here.
Okay. Well, we know history tells us what happens when the government doesn't step in to protect people with social service programs and distribute the money. We can look at the sweatshops of the 1890s and 1920s in the big cities. Where did them orphans go? They went to sweatshops. Ask the rural black that lived in the tenant farms if they needed government help. Or was the farmers going to help them? Not really. So I'm a firm believer that the government has to distribute the money. If it comes through taxation, so be it. Our society is going to suffer a great deal if we just rely on not helping the people that's disadvantaged. Mm-hmm. There's going to be more crime and less people able to work. We're already having, like the one person said today, our workforce is really bad because people can't pass a drug test. And so anything that, for example, Matt Shea says that he don't think homeless people should be able to use the homeless address to get their license. What are they going to do if they don't have an address?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. So we have a choice to make. The choice is between weeds and the library. Weeds, not weed. I have a few questions left, and I want to leave time for all of you to wrap up your presentation tonight. I have a question about weeds and why they grow the way all over the place, and I have another question that is more about the library that wasn't, and now perhaps maybe still is. And so, library?
You asking us to vote?
I'm asking you.
I vote library.
Library? What about you guys? Library or weeds?
Weeds.
Library?
I hear weeds.
Okay, show of hands. Library? Show of hands.
They want the library.
You want the library. Okay, I'm sorry. The weed thing is going to have to wait. Uh-oh. Is anybody leave? Nope, nobody left. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can do a brief recap here on the library thing. So, as you probably all know, because I hope you vote, there was an attempt to find funding for a new library in Spokane Valley. There was a bond. They tried to pass it twice. So let's just get this straight. It did get a majority of votes. You know, it got the majority, but it was not a big enough majority twice. So it didn't pass. The library district was like, okay, we understand, we're done, we can't do this anymore, you know, we'll live within what we have. There is a parcel of land across the street from the new city hall where this new library, if it had been approved, could have been built. That land is still held by the library district. I believe they have the contract on it until October or November of this year. At some of the last city council meetings, I've heard a couple of people bring up that perhaps there could still be a library. Maybe there is a way of building a library on that spot. And so my question is very simple. Is that a priority to you? And do you believe the city should be involved in funding the building of said library? Yes, sir. Mayor.
Well, as you pointed out, the library district has the option of us buying back the land and giving them back their money. Mm-hmm. They have since moved away from that at our behest because the council feels it's very important that across from our city hall, across Sprague, we need that library and we need Balfour Park completed to make a nice community center. People say we don't have a city center. Well, we don't. We may never have because that's not the way we're built. But we do need a center for our community. And the library district has gone back to the drawing board and they've come up with a scaled down version of their other request back when. We're not going to get this one done. Suffice it to say, it's on the board and we're working on it.
Okay, thank you. You want to go next?
Sure.
Yep.
This is a really tough question because, as Pia rightly pointed out, this has gone to vote. You know, there's been a lot of people who have voiced their opinions on this, and not enough of them said that they want for a library. That being said, I personally support a library. I think it's one of the few publicly owned buildings that I would support. It's one of our most used publicly owned buildings. I'm sure the other councilmen can attest to that. So it's not an unimportant building. But ultimately, we have needs and we have wants, as Mr. Collier rightly pointed out. And, you know, if we can't find a way to, where are we going to stretch it out of our current budget? We're talking about road maintenance deficits. We're talking about, you know, other issues that have come up. I mean, you know, realistically, I'm glad that the library isn't pushing to return the land right now so that we can, you know, perhaps educate the populace more on the need of this library. But I think that that's really the direction we have to go.
All right, thank you. Jackson?
Well, if I remember correctly, the bond failed by roughly 3% both times in terms of the actual numbers. And so I wouldn't take that as a statistical certainty that we didn't want it, if indeed most of the people that did vote expressed their concerns that they did. But I want to tie this into the larger issue of representation, right? So when we talk about people that actually do vote in these things, it's actually a relatively small number. The same goes for the actual city council elections themselves. And so one of the things I think city council needs to do is work on that outreach, because it's not our decision to make, you know, decisions that people don't want, but it is our prerogative to actually seek out those opinions, and we don't do a very good job of that right now. And so I imagine if we did sample a wider group, or we did ask more people in the valley, that would have passed quite easily.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on the library?
I think that we should explore other opportunities, the same way that we should have maybe explored more opportunities on the city hall. I know we got a great deal on the city hall, but I'm still not totally 100% for it, because I think we could have decreased a little bit more. As far as the library, we need to wait. Like Chris, I think, said, I'm glad that we still have that plot so that it still is an option. But I think if we explore just a little bit longer, we may be able to find something that was a little bit better.
Okay. Ms. Haley?
So I want to clarify, I don't think the city of Spokane Valley council is implying that we would be paying for any part of the library. We're just looking at options. And one of the things tying services into the city of Spokane Valley, there are a lot of services at the library that you don't think about. You think about books and maybe some videos. I still remember the old card thing, but they actually have classes there. They do STARS training for daycare providers. They have bring kids in and teach them how to do videoing. They have computers available for people. They help them with job searches. They help them with online education. There's a lot of other things that are available at the library that I'm not sure that message really got out to everybody. I think everybody got the idea that it was just about books. So I think that we just need to focus more on outreach and see what the public wants. It's still going to come up to a vote.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Collier? I'm sorry, Munch. I'm sorry. We're getting late. My first mistake.
Excuse me. Pam basically summed it up pretty well, and Rod, it's not the direction of the city council to pay for this at all. All we wanted to do was come alongside the library and help them scale down a little or maybe target more, because it missed by such a small margin, and it does so much for the community. Almost everybody up here has talked about different social services that need to happen and different things like that, and the library is one of those that always has done those and has been the springboard for countless low-income people to get ahead in life, So if we're concerned about that, then we definitely should focus on things that have proven track records, and the libraries are one of those. But it's not going to be paid for by the city. It's something that we're just helping them hopefully reach out to the populace and say this is why we need it and why we want it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else on the library? No? All right. I think we've gotten to the point where if we want a closing statement from each of you, which we do, then we should get started now, or because there's so many of you, we won't be done until tomorrow. I'm thinking 2 minutes. Is that what we talk about?
I think a minute and a half.
Minute and a half? Okay, minute and a half. Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? It's getting late. It's getting late. Let's do this. Why don't we do a minute? And then if you're in the middle of saying something, we'll let you finish, okay? And so this is when you get to tell people why they should vote for you again, or vote for you for the first time. This is when you get to ask for the vote. We'll give you a minute, and I think we're going to start up in the back corner with Mr. Pace, please.
We'll buzz you at 2, though.
Yeah.
I would be honored to serve.
Oh, we can't hear you, sir. Turn on the microphone, please. Come on, yeah?
I think it's on. I would be honored to serve you for one more term, for a total of 2 terms. I believe in self-imposed term limits. I do not want to serve one more term. I'm not in politics for the duration. I came out of nowhere and ran the first time. This next term, I want to focus on no new taxes. That's a commitment. Safe, smooth streets without raising taxes. Zero tolerance for crime, no government secrets, and thriving city economy. So again, I do like phone calls. I always give out my phone number. My cell phone's 570-4394. I believe in building community, but I believe community's built 1 cup of coffee at a time. So call me up. We'll set up a time to meet for coffee, and we'll talk. I might not agree with you. You might not agree with me. You might go away from it mad, but at least we've talked and started building community. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's just go down the row. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
All right. My name is Ben Wick. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I know there's a lot of things that we have on our schedules and agendas, but really appreciate you taking the time to come listen to us here tonight. So again, my name is Ben Wick, running for Spokane Valley City Council position number 4. I'd greatly appreciate your vote. My priorities are and continue to be public infrastructure, streets, preservation, prioritizing that and using our funding wisely to do that and invest in it. Also public safety, preservation of the neighborhoods, and open and honest government. I mean, while I don't drink coffee like Ed, but I am definitely open to talking and meeting with any of you. So I'll be staying afterwards if anybody has any questions or would like to come out and ask something that didn't get approached about here tonight. So thank you again for coming here tonight and really appreciate your support.
Thank you.
I'm Caleb Collier, and I am currently on the Spokane Valley City Council, position 2, and I'm humbly here to ask you for your vote. I truly have a passion for this service. I touched on that in my opening statement, but I love what I do. I'm perhaps a bit of a Renaissance man, I'm not sure. I might have been born in the wrong time period, but I really do want to do this. I love representing you, the people. And, I'm going to close my statement with this little tidbit. Spokane Valley is the answer to Spokane's politics.
Hi, I'm Brandi. Again, thank you guys for coming out and giving me the time to get to know me and the other candidates. I sincerely appreciate it. Just a couple things. I have a very unique, diverse skill set. I've been in the community for over 25 years. I was raised here. I've been doing community service. I know and see the different types of issues that we're facing. And the 3 things that are most important to me are community public safety, community development, and community engagement. To me, the biggest piece of this is getting your guys' input, getting your voices, feeling like you guys are heard. That's very important. Any of those other things, even though they're extremely important, we have to have your voice first and get your feelings and where you're coming from these, because you are the citizens and your voice does count. I appreciate you guys again for being here, and I would accept your vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I admire all of you because of your exhibition of a high pain tolerance level for sitting through this entire thing for the evening. This council is working very well. I have been honored over the past year plus to be your mayor, and I'd like to respectfully request your vote. Thank you.
Thanks again for your time tonight, folks. And I just want to harken back to what I said at the beginning of this. Really, I see 2 visions for the Valley. And, I respect Mayor Rod Higgins and all he's done for the city. I think that he's a great serviceman at heart, and his heart's in the right place. But I disagree that our city is working well. I disagree that our council is working well. I think that if we continue on the path that we're continuing on, we're going to have rough roads, we're going to have less services, economic development's going to fall apart. Most importantly of all, our education system just won't be able to make it if we don't find a way to put the true cost on those who are creating the true cost. Because realistically, levying more taxes from you guys supplementing the developers it's not going to do it for our city. So, it's really up to you to decide which vision of the future do you want. And I just really like your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello again, everybody. Just take a minute, shake it out, get loose. You guys have been sitting for just as long as we have. What you might not know about me is that I got my PhD in social psychology, and I like to play this fun game, and I'm actually actively trying to pursue this as a course of action, that if you try to have a conversation with someone, I want to see how long you can go in the political arena without guessing which political party they are. Because one of the things the brain does is as soon as you find out that information, you immediately disregard or tune into whatever they're about to say next, regardless of the content of the information. So I want to be a voice on the city council that actually makes sure that we try to avoid those kind of pitfalls, that we try to work towards solutions that make sense for everybody, rather than just any political ideology. And if we can do that, if we make sure those are the voices we're looking out and seeking, I think more people will actually be wanting to participate in this process. Because as it stands now, a lot of people are exhausted, and they want to be in an environment where those types of ideas are listened to and heard without any preconditions. I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Haley.
Hi, I'm Pam Haley. I think what I'd like to focus on, if I get your vote, is public safety first, keeping our streets smooth, and economic development. And I'd like to know how Chris thinks he can make city council meetings fun.
A barrel of laughs. All right, go ahead.
I don't know how to go after that one, but well, as you guys know, I own a cab company. I own a flea market, all in Spokane Valley. I have skin in the game, okay? I want to make the roads better, but there are things that we have to do as city council members to make things better. We can't just say, property crimes and no taxes and all of these things are nice and rosy, but in reality, we have to do things to make that happen. I'm a kind of guy, I'm not as educated as the rest of the panel up here, obviously, but I am the kind of guy that's going to roll their sleeves up and get down and work with you and find out what the real issue is. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to go and find it, and then I'm going to come back to you and say, I got the answer for you. I want to work for you, the people. That's what this city is about. This city is growing at a rapid pace, so everybody's going to flourish. I really believe that.
Well, thank you for coming out and being here tonight, and I'm really glad that I got invited. I just want to point out that I've been volunteering for about 13 years now, and my work leading a university towards accreditation, I worked 3 straight years at 60 hours a week or more for no pay. And there's a Christian university now that offers free degrees to incarcerated students and third world country students that are getting accredited degrees today for the work that we've done. And I was responsible for getting our college program into 19 prisons in America, including some of the federal prisons. And I was their compliance officer and learning officer, so I did a lot of work in that. So anything that I would do if I get elected, I'm not going to take your tax monies and try to make all these social programs. I don't believe in the redistribution of wealth. That's wrong. But what I will do is, because I'm a grant writer and I know how to do it, we'll work very hard on getting some outside funding, streams of funds in for some type of programs. I also am a researcher and have a half of a master's degree in public policy. I can work very well with the city manager and understand the terminology he uses and the statistics and so forth. So if I'm elected, I'll be able to contribute to the board in those ways. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Linda Thompson, and I just ask that you vote for me. I want to take the time to say thank you to the people who have mentored me, who have shared their wisdom, watching the council in action and learning things about how to be a good leader and how to discuss things and be busy. But I want to really point out the people who have mentored me, like Chuck and Tom, who've said, and Diana, come on, run, try it, be engaged. And I want to have young people look to me and say, I could do this too. I'm so proud of Brandi for running. She volunteered at our organization and ended up going to school full-time, working full-time, and is an incredible young person, and we need a lot more young people coming up. But I want to honor my mom, who's here, who is always carrying my bag of stuff. She's always carried my bag of stuff, so she's still doing that. But I just want to thank her for the leadership she put in me as a young girl to stand up straight and speak my mind and be brave in my thought and deed. And I just thank you for tonight. Oh.
I'm Mike Munch again, and I'd like to echo everybody else here. I mean, it's great that you guys are willing to donate so many hours of your life to listen to us and what we want to do. For me, I believe that it's incredibly important when you're picking your council members or any elected officials for that matter, that you're looking for who's a good servant and who's doing it because they want to make their place better and not because they want to edify themselves. And I feel like I really feel that way. I don't care about having my name in lights or any of that kind of stuff. I just have a real heart for keeping a good, solid government that we have right now. As Rod said, it's working right now. We've accomplished an amazing amount of stuff in a year, and we've got plans to do a lot more. So hopefully we can stay together and keep this going, because I think that we are handing you a city that you are and can be truly proud of.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for inviting me too, and have a good evening.
Thank you all for your participation tonight. Takes a lot to give up a weeknight to come in. So sincerely, from Republicans of Spokane County, thank you.